Honourable members, if you
Recording
will
in
join
progress.
me for a moment of silence for prayer or meditation, please. Thank you, honourable members. Let's take our seats. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members, Minister. Honourable delegates, I'd like to remind all delegates that the rules, in particular sub-rules 21, 22 and 23 of Rule 103 apply to today's sitting. In accordance with Council Rule 2291, there will be no notices of motion or motions without notice today. Honourable delegates, before we proceed to the questions, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome the Minister of Small Business Development and the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition. The latter minister will join us virtually in the House and both ministers are from the Economics Cluster. And I'd also like to welcome all permanent delegates, MECs and special delegates to the House. Further, I'd like to remind delegates that in terms of Rule 229 of the Council Rules, the time for reply by the Minister to a question is 5 minutes. Only 4 supplementary questions are allowed per question. A member who has asked the initial question will be the first to be afforded an opportunity to ask a supplementary question. The time for asking supplementary questions is limited to 2 minutes. The time for reply to supplementary questions is 4 minutes, and the supplementary question must emanate from the initial question. I now call on the Minister of Small Business Development to take the podium, please, and thereafter to respond to question number 284, which was asked by the Honourable Modise, and it relates to the Department's strategic role in providing support and capacity for local government. Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chairperson, and good afternoon to all the honourable members. Thank you, Honourable Boshoff, for the question that you have asked. The proposal that is being...
Honourable Minister, just to point you in the right direction, it's question 284, which is first on the order paper, and that was asked by Mr. Modise. Question 284.
Right? Don't do that to me.
It's December, Chairperson.
My apologies, House Chairperson. Honourable Modise, the question that you have asked, as I respond to it, as the department will deploy a number of tools that provide support and capacity to local government as a catalyst for local economic development and transformation. I'm just going to highlight a few of the activities that we get involved in order to assist the municipalities to drive the local economic growth in their respective areas. The first thing that we look at as we work closely with the municipalities is to support them by developing their LED strategies. We work with them and ask for the policy and the strategy in order to ensure that it is aligned and it does give a direction to what the municipality wants to do. Of course, the major driving department or policy department is COGTA. We come in as a support function. We have developed the National LED Framework that seeks to enhance the work that is already there so that they can be able to pay attention, which we look at research and planning, and of course the strategy development. The other aspect aspect that we look at is the integrated development plan support. Because most municipalities tend to mess it up there, starting by the residents that will not attend the IDP sessions that are convened by councillors. And we always call upon, especially entrepreneurs, to participate in IDP programs so that they're able to give direction to what the municipality must do and make sure that the business of entrepreneurs find expression. Of course, honorable members, you continue to ask us about the red tape reduction, and this is the work that we do closely with the municipalities because, as I've been explaining, that red tape is nothing but a law, policy, and a regulation that is in place. This is why in the red tape reduction framework, we've ensured that we raise awareness with the municipalities, and some of them have managed to really improve on their areas. And so far, we've trained about 52 municipalities across the 6 provinces that are there. We had came to this house and we reported that as part of the interventions, we've also ensured that some municipalities having undergone the red tape reduction awareness program, they develop e-registration systems. I'm sure you're going to ask me about spaza shops, and that's part of the challenges that we're talking about. When we did the research, we then discovered that there are no digital systems and the municipalities continue to offer the service manually, and this is why we also recommend for the municipalities to adopt the e-registration system. We do have some municipalities that have responded, especially in KwaZulu-Natal. We have the workshop that we had in Northern Cape, in the Free State, and other provinces are beginning to pick up, but until we see the results, Honorable Chairperson, we're not able to say it has been successful so far. I would like to pose the House Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable Modise, would you like to pose a supplementary question?
Yeah, Chair, if the Minister is already dealing with spaza shops, she's making it difficult, but let me try and be ambitious and see, Minister, from your response, especially around the fact that local government is at the cold face of service delivery, especially around the economic development. Do you think that there is anything that other provinces can learn from Gauteng around the Gauteng Township economic model? Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Modise. Your reply to that, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Modise. Indeed, Gauteng is a great province to learn from if you're looking at the investment that they are making in the township economy. And that did not only start yesterday, it started with a work that was led by Minister Dao, who's going to come here, which culminated to a legislation that guides how government must reinvest in the townships, but also what is the role of the businesses in the townships. And that was accompanied by both the financial and non-financial support in order to make sure that there are markets that are found in their townships, as we both look at ensuring that we invest a lot in the SEZ, in the driving of the light industrial parks, so that there is some manufacturing that is enhanced in the townships. And yes, I would invite other provinces to take a look at what Gauteng is doing, because so far they've done so well in the township economy. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go now to the Honourable Pinar for a supplementary question.
Dankie, Vice-Voorzitter. Honourable Minister, the 500 million Spaza Shop Support Fund was intended to empower local entrepreneurs. Yet, shockingly, the distribution network for this fund is restricted to only 3 approved suppliers, all based in Gauteng, suspiciously, Honourable Modise. Handing cushy contracts to the connected few is how BBBE has worked in this country to date. If the goal is truly to uplift local economies, especially in rural municipalities, why has your department effectively handed over a 500 million monopoly to just 3 distributors, instead of empowering suppliers across the country to support the local communities they serve? Thank you, Minister. Dankie, Vice-Voorzitter.
Thank you, Honourable Pinar. Back to you for a reply to that, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. Firstly, let me clarify the honourable member that the BBBE process that he's talking about, as I had explained during the budget vote, we all have a responsibility to give credence to the constitution that we've adopted. And the honourable members, I advise to read the preamble of the Constitution that I referred to even when I delivered the budget vote speech here, which talks to addressing the injustices whilst we're recognizing everything. It's important that as we look at the Constitution, we want to apply everything into entirety. We have no choice but to make sure that we deal with the redress in our own country. We have fought so hard to make sure that we build an equal society. And for that, it means that the scales have to be leveled for all the citizens to be able to participate in their own country in terms of the economy and any other right that they must enjoy. Now, as we talk about the 500 million spaza shops and the three companies that have been mentioned, as the honorable member articulates, it is incorrect to say all the companies are based in Gauteng. I would advise the honorable member to do more research. One of the companies is in KwaZulu-Natal, and all of them have a national footage, which is what my team has advised me on, that they looked at the digital footprint. How many do you service? I know the honorable member is looking at physical stores, but unfortunately, in the digital economy that we're embarking on, is to say, how do we link the consumer, which is the buyer, the supplier, which will be the spaza shop or a mini shop, and the person that supplies the spaza shop? Because when you do that, you're able to track from manufacturing to the person who is going to be consuming the product and be able to hold people accountable. That's why we opted for that. There's lots of physical stores indeed in each and every area, but some of them are selling the food that is not really have been approved. And this is why we said, look at the database, make sure that you ensure that all the companies that have applied or you are going to award are companies that will be responsive to not only driving the economy, but also ensuring that they meet all the standards that are there. And the 500 million is still available. We have not finished it. Again, we call on all members of parliament to encourage our people to stop fronting for non-South Africans, but they themselves register the spaza shops if they have not started, so that we can help them with the support. And when we do that, we'll be bringing back our economy to the rightful hands of the township people, of the rural area people, and any other person that qualifies to do business in South Africa. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. We'll now go to the online platform and offer Honourable Mampuru an opportunity to propose a supplementary question. Honourable Mampuru.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Greetings, members. Greetings, Minister. Minister, I'm glad that you've raised the issue of fronting, which I was going to have to pose it to you as to check how best we can deal with it. But now that that have been dealt with, I just want to check, Minister, that now local government is meant to be the engine of local economic development and transformation, yet too often municipalities lack capacity, fail to implement economic projects and leave communities trapped in poverty. Can the minister explain what strategic intervention and support mechanism has the department provided to ensure that municipalities are capable of driving local economic development, and given the persistent failure of at the local level, how will the department hold local government accountable and ensure that its support translates into real measurable transformation for small businesses and local communities, rather than remaining poor, or rather than remaining a paper plans or symbolic initiatives? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mampuru. There was a question there, Minister. If we can ask you to reply, please.
Thank you so much, House Chair, and thank you to Honourable Mampuru. I so wish I had all this power that the Honourable Member assumes I have, so that I can indeed hold local government accountable, because there's so many things I would have loved to be changed. There is a department responsible for the coordination, policy, and accountability for local municipalities, which is the Department of COGTA. But of course, as I explained earlier when I responded to Honourable Muduse's question, the work that I do finds expression in the local area, and of course is driven from the LED units. Now, this would tell you that if you are to make an intervention as a supporting department, the first thing that you have to do is to then conduct research. Who is in the office? What capabilities do they have? You look at the strategies, as I said, the LED strategies and the LED policies, but also you take an interest on the participation of the LED forum if there is. If there is none, what then happens? Which is why, from our side, as we've conducted the research, we then encountered a reality that although there are officials in most municipalities that are responsible for some of the functions that we want them to work with us on, like licensing, amongst others, we then realize that the capabilities is what the municipalities are struggling with. This, of course, is driven by two things at times: the size of the municipality, which is not able to attract highly skilled people because salary follows the mandate. And this is one of the things that we are hoping that through the white paper on local government will be looked at in terms of the funding model for the municipalities. The second thing that I already spoke about is the fact that entrepreneurs don't usually participate in these forums, and any municipality that is able to have a sharper pointed LED policy and strategy is a municipality that works with business in their respective areas and the residents that must be the consumers of the services. We have, therefore, agreed with the National School of Government, as I announced in the budget vote. We have partnered also with the University of Johannesburg to say we want to have a customized LED program that must really assist those that are interested, because we can't force them. They're not in our control, but we will advise the Minister of COGTA as we advise the municipalities. And fortunately, we've received a positive feedback wherein they must undertake those skills or those training in order to enhance the work that they do. We will be hosting in March, as the portfolio will be hosting the LED Summit, which will bring together all the relevant stakeholders on LED, business, the municipality, the citizens, the associations, the lawmakers, and everyone that matters in the business of promoting LED. And when we do that, we are wanting to look at certain things, whether it's the bylaws, the policies themselves, and the challenges that they face with. We are hopeful that the summit will come up with clear program of action on what must be done tangibly, not only by the Department of Small Business Development, but all the departments that have a responsibility to contribute towards local economic development in their respective areas. Thank you so much, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let's stay on the online platform, and we now go to the Honourable Mokoena.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, local economic development experts have long warned that government relies too much on program-based support instead of redesigning the entire local economic ecosystem. Given the fact that your department has set the same approach for the past 5 years, what new interventions are you hoping to outlay for us in the next 5 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokoena. Your reply, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Mokoena. As I said, the first thing for one to provide an intervention is to understand the baseline. And that's why earlier on I spoke about the research that was conducted. I spoke about the interventions in terms of providing skills. But of course, at the center of all of this is a collaboration between all the critical stakeholders, is to anchor local economic development in the DDM model that must bring all the role players. I would want to make an example with the city of eThekwini, where in an intervention, the presidential team has been put, the businesses taking part, institutions of higher learning are contributing, smaller businesses are contributing, the citizens themselves and the municipality, including the different departments. Same applies to the city of Joburg in terms of the intervention. And when there is that collaboration, you can then begin to see what are the economic growth drivers, because everyone will be working towards the same goal. If the municipality are not able to identify economic growth drivers, it is difficult to come up with LED strategies that will be responsive to that area. Secondly, if the special plan of the municipality does not take into consideration the LED, again, it poses lots of challenges. That is why in the interventions that we're talking about, we're bringing all those together to say there's a need for closer collaboration between the special plan unit of the municipality the LED unit, and the infrastructure unit and the financing unit. If those four work together, we are bound to see changes. And yes, I must agree that for a better period in our time, we had really not paid much attention in the capability of local municipalities to drive the LED. This is why jointly, even at the national level, the President has appointed Minister Thabisa to coordinate all ministers towards helping municipalities with the LED, as we seek to ensure that we drive the key principles that we have set for ourselves, creating jobs for our people, building a sustainable economy, sustainable and inclusive economy. Therefore, at the center of that is a clear program of action that must be driven at the local level. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you for that, Minister. That concludes question number 284. Let's move now to question number 270. It was asked by the Honourable Boshoff and relates to the application of the proposed BEE levy on small business. Your reply, please, Minister.
This is the one that I jumped for. Thank you so much, House Chair. Honourable Boshoff, the proposal that is being referred to in your question, rather than it intending to cripple small enterprises, is aimed at, amongst other things, raising capital for small enterprises in order to address the credit gap that was identified by the IMF, which was 350 billion rands in 2021. And as things advance, definitely it has gone higher, but we are awaiting the final results of the research that has been conducted. Therefore, as I explained earlier, there shouldn't be anyone in South Africa who has the interest of supporting small businesses or the interest of small businesses who would want to think that BEE exists to undermine or cripple small enterprises. That is why, if you read the entire policy, you will find that there's certain exemptions. If you look at the clauses that talk to the enterprise supplier development, those are clearly inserted to ensure that we are able to support small businesses. The issue that we've been dealing with is to ensure that we then give a direction on how the ESD funds are spent at. Because as much as we set policies and laws, it's important that we become deliberate in the programs that must support the policy for it to take place. Therefore, this is why Minister Parks, supported by us, the Department of Small Business Development, that had the funding policy of the small enterprises and cooperatives approved by Cabinet to say, how do we create a fund of funds in order to deal with access to capital or increase access to capital for small enterprises? We therefore joined Minister Parks because as much as in the policy, we had made proposals that 1% of the ESD will be contributed to the fund of funds. Now, when it says voluntarily, I want to emphasize, because there's this notion that this is being imposed. And all we do as empowered by the Constitution is to give our people an opportunity to express themselves, including the big business, that most of them have responded positively to the call to get the 3% to go to the transformation fund. That must deal with the credit gap that South Africa has. And that is for the interest of small enterprises in this country, not for anything. As we politic about everything, the law that we make must favor all. And in this instance, small businesses too deserve an opportunity to participate in their own economy. Lastly, I'm not sure what are the regulations that the honorable member is talking to. I'm not sure what are those. If the honorable member knows other regulations, I would be happy to get those. But I just want to articulate a process before any policy is approved. In government, we have what we call the CS, wherein we conduct every policy that we adopt, goes through certain processes, including that assessment that is being done on socio-economic impact assessment system that helps us as policymakers to understand what are the potential impact, whether you're looking at politically, economically, and otherwise, so that we are able to minimize the unintended consequences of the policy, and of course, identify the risk that must be mitigated and ensure that policies are evidence-based and have positive outcomes of the country. There can't be any policy passed by government that does not look at that. There can never be a regulation that will undermine CS, because if it has not passed CS, it means it can't go through. The policies that we have passed, whether we're talking about BE, whether we're talking about the transformation fund, that we're talking about the funding policy for MSMEs, have all gone through those, and the affected stakeholders really support this. Thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable Boshoff, I'm sure you have a supplementary follow-up question.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. And you answered the question that you posed to me yourself with regard to regulations and policies. Those are the ones currently on the table in your department. Now, Minister, with respect, South Africans have heard promises for years. And instead of proposing this voluntary, as you specifically said, 3% levy on the turnover of unlisted companies, which many small firms warn will wipe out their margins, why is government not adopting the Western Cape's proven approach of cutting red tape, improving turnaround times, and providing targeted SMME support that actually grows business and jobs that we are currently fighting for as the GNU without taxing them for trying to survive? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Boshoff. Back to you, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Boshoff, for that question. I don't want any misrepresentation of what I've said in relation to government policies here. I have not quoted any regulation. I made reference to the processes that we undertake to pass a policy. I thought it's important that I clarify that. Secondly, to say government must look at the Western Cape wise every day, Honourable Chair, every day we get inundated with complaints from entrepreneurs from this province. I don't think it is a fair thing in terms of the policy, because we've got to look at all aspects. We have to deal with the divide that is amongst our people when we develop a policy, which is why even the policy, that the intervention on the levies that we're talking about is canvassed with those listed and unlisted businesses that are affected. This is not work that is done in the boardrooms. This is work that we go and consult with the affected stakeholders who understand the benefits, because as they volunteer, that 3% that must go to the transformation fund, they earn points. And it is those points that seek to say, we are incentivizing you by opening up an opportunity to give small enterprises access to capital. I wouldn't view that as anything that really is undermining the work that must be done. To say, we're giving you an incentive because you're already in business, open up your value chain, contribute because it is the levy that you're already paying. Therefore, let us redirect it so that there's a direction in a country. When we say we want to build an inclusive economy that must create jobs, indeed that inclusivity must be given expression by legal prescripts, and introducing these talks to that. To say, we're not going to force you, but we want to see from your conscience, do you have an understanding and appreciation that South Africa is an unequal state, that small enterprises are closed out every day, and therefore if you have a conscience, do you see the need to coexist with small enterprises using the profit that you are making? And this is done within the legal framework, Honourable Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada is next to get an opportunity.
Thank you, House Chair. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for your coherent response to this critical question, which draws the line between anti-transformation and pro-transformation trajectory. I just can't pose any question, because in your two questions that you have responded to, you have also responded to what I was going to pose. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister, there wasn't a question, but you're welcome to respond if you'd like to. Thank you very much. Honourable delegates, we now go back to the virtual platform, and it's the turn of Honourable Xeza from the Economic Freedom Fighters.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I hope the Minister was not speaking to the structural policy adjustments when he spoke about the IMF. And also, I hope that he was not talking to any conscience, because I don't think there is any conscience to speak to, let alone the policy having to speak to any conscience in South Africa. Otherwise, we'll be far in terms of development. But Honorable Minister, global institutions such as the IMF have repeatedly confirmed that the biggest constraint facing black township and rural SMMEs is the credit gap, the structural inability of small firms to assess affordable finance, collateral, and working capital. Given this empirical evidence that our SMMEs are already underfinanced and overburdened, can the minister explain to the House how imposing, or rather speaking to the conscience, which I do not know where is it, how an additional 3% levy on businesses that cannot even secure basic credit will not further widen that credit gap, worsen liquidity pressures, and push more black producers out of the economy. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Treza. Let's go back to the Minister for reply, please.
Thank you, Honourable Treza. I'm really confused. At some point earlier in your remarks, you are seemingly ridiculing what the IMF and the reference I made on the credit gap, and at the same time you come and ask me about the credit gap that has been identified by IMF. But nevertheless, I will leave that to you. Now, you are correct in citing what are the findings of the research that has been conducted by IMF. It is the same findings that every other scholar finds, because it's the reality of our townships. Now, Honourable Treza, if you had me earlier, in case you had missed, the presentation that we did on the development of the funding policy for MSMEs, which identified this gap that I spoke about. I even said it was identified to be 350 billion rands. In the funding policy, we then call for the fund of funds in order to close the gap. Secondly, we then add the aspect that talks to the development of a movable collateral registry in order to widen access to market, because the issues of collateral and the other things that we're talking about are those that are being used, but they're providing financial support to entrepreneurs in order to exclude them. That's why they never ask when they're going for their housing bonds and the other things, but when it comes to business, those things are explained. So that as the department, as I said, Honourable Member, the policy is in place to guide all those that finance, whether they are banking or non-banking institutions. And to this regard, we are finalizing the registry, working with the Department of National Treasury to say what are the other assets that can be added, not only to focus on immovable, but also look at the movable assets that can be used for small businesses to be able to access finance. And that we are doing that because we have a conscience. If you don't have it, there is going to be a crisis. Political conscience is very important because it guides what you stand for. That when you take an oath on the Constitution, you get to remind yourself that as you take a decision, how is this decision advancing that call, that commitment that you would have made to the country? This is why I would advise you, Honourable Member, to support the establishment of the Transformation Fund and the 3% levy that we're talking about, because it seeks to address the concern that you have dealing with the credit gap that is there, that is depriving MSMEs in the townships and rural areas to participate meaningfully in their own economy. And this is something that we shouldn't play petty politics about. It is about the livelihoods of our people. It's about transforming our own economy. It's about ensuring that the social cohesion in our own country, because as long as people feel that they're excluded and government is not being deliberate in using legal prescripts, people will rise up, and unfortunately, they will chase away the investors, or they will feel like they're excluded. That's why we make it our business to say, let's use the law to empower our people, take from those that have more in order to make sure that others can also have. And then we coexist whilst we are incentivizing those that have more. Thank you so much, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go now to Mr. Van den Berg to ask a supplementary question.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, again, taking into mind that 3% of revenue equates to 30% of pre-tax profit, and 70% of SMMEs suffer from cash flow, and noting that another levy could prove disastrous and that voluntary could come across as forced to be able to do business in South Africa, would it not be a good idea for the Minister and the Department of Small Business Development to express themselves more sharply against this threat to small businesses, as you are the advocate for everyone in this sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Van den Berg. Let's go to the Minister for reply, please.
My responsibility is to champion the interests of MSMEs in South Africa first, as I look into the continent and the globe. Therefore, anything that seeks to empower them is what I will advocate for. And speaking against the 3% levy is really dealing with them and closing them an opportunity to have access to more markets. This is why as the department, we can never support that. We are for the 3% levy in order to benefit MSMEs in our country and bridge the gap. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. That concludes the response to question 270 and its supplementaries. We will now move to question number 286. Question 286 was asked by Honourable Mabilo and relates to the integrated policy on cooperatives. Your reply, please, Minister. Question 286.
Thank you so much, House Chair, and apologies that my answers are not in the order that you are calling them in. Whether any integrated mental policy on cooperatives to leverage mass empowerment of women and youth is in place? If not, why not? If so, what are the relevant details? Yes, Honourable Member. We have policies that are cutting across that look at the work that is being done by the cooperatives. We provide 40% of all our products and programs to women of this country. We ensure that 30% of our products and programs go to young people of our country. This we do because we believe that it is important that cooperatives really participate in their economy by being provided the support that they need, especially that cooperatives are closer to the women and youth. If you look at the communities that we come from, most of the people that are able to work together, it is women. And that is why coming closer to women-owned cooperatives, we know very well that there's going to be sustainability, and most of them are really doing well. Whether I can cite others in Northwest, a group of women who are involved in agricultural space. They are even exporting to 8 more countries. And I believe it is because they are women and there's no man that is there to make them fight amongst each other. So yes, we do have the policies that support the women cooperatives. Thank you, Australia.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Mabilo, a supplementary question from you, representing the African National Congress in the Northern Cape.
Thank you, House Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Thanks for the comprehensive response to the question. Honourable Minister, as you may be aware, the President has assured the nation that women, youth, and people living with disabilities will be prioritized through government procurement. The question is, 1, what policy intervention has been made by your department to massify the participation of these critical sectors in the economy through cooperatives? 2, can the Minister assure us that key success stories of cooperatives as a model for economic development and transformation, especially in the rural areas? Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Mabilo, and back to you for your response, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Mabilo, on the question. We have, as I said, we have the integrated strategy. We have, I heard the member saying, which is not comprehensive. We have the integrated strategy for the promotion and development of cooperatives, which we developed in 2012. We gave it a 10 period to 2022, and then we did the review. And in doing this, to give effect to what you spoke about in terms of ensuring that cooperatives that are owned by women, they really participate meaningfully to give effect to what the president announced. We announced the establishment of the Women Empowerment Fund, which we said is 300 million rands for this year. And we've been going around the country canvassing views of women in order to make sure that the design of the fund talks to the women of our country. This we do because there are so many funds that we have in the country, but still we're complaining about access to them because the way they are designed, they're not talking to the intended beneficiaries. That's why we've called upon cooperatives in the different sectors, from women in all aspects, to say, come and help us design a fund that must talk to you, because ours is to create a conducive environment for them to thrive. It's not a policy that must be made for us. Secondly, to deal with the issue of youth, we made sure that we launch the youth fund. Again, we have 300 million rands. Remember, these are seed funds, because we know that the challenges faced by women and youth-owned businesses are far more than 300 million rands worth. So we seed fund in order to say we invite anyone from the private sector, from other departments, to partner with us, as we will also be partnering with the NYDA amongst other partners, to say how do we redesign the models and then be able to provide financing that is really conducive for our people. And yes, Honorable Member, cooperatives are a very creative way of bringing the economy back to many people. That's why we always talk about collective entrepreneurship, a group of individuals that are entrepreneurs that come together recognizing their skills and wanting to tamper with the status quo. Whether you look at the food production industries, whether you look at the retail, it is most insurance companies, you will see even the banks, they are a result of the work that was done through cooperatives. That's why we are saying, as we redesign the strategies, there's a need to add more financing so that we help them with both pre-investment support and post-investment, so that they really try to disrupt the status quo and be able to bring wealth back to majority of the people that we have. In agriculture, the minister is working closely in the agri space, as I spoke about food production, and cooperatives in that sector have really proven that it is possible to feed the nation if you work as the group. Whether you go to the Department of Energy, as we're looking into the renewable energies, again, we're seeing a group of entrepreneurs that are collaborating as cooperatives to say we are prepared to provide energy solutions to our people. Same applies to the other sectors, whether you're looking at health, in the provision of the uniform for the nurses and all the health professionals that require uniform. I'm just citing few examples of what happens, including those that are providing clothes and the school uniform in the shops that honorable members love so much. And please, as I make that call, because the clothes, some of them that you buy in these shops that you love, they come from our cooperatives. You are just not willing to support them, buy directly from them, but when they go to the malls and with the popular brands, then you buy them. To support the cooperatives, I pledge. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. The Honourable Badenhorst represents the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, and the next opportunity for a supplementary question is given to him. Honourable Badenhorst.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Minister, cooperatives cannot empower anyone if 80% of them fail within 2 years. Minister, can you confirm to this House whether this is the result of bad policy or bad political leadership? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Badenhorst. Your reply to that, please, Minister.
And thank you so much. I haven't heard even the honourable member criticizing one policy that we have presented here, which will tell you that the problem is definitely not the policy. Otherwise, I would have heard the honourable member saying, Minister, that policy, you must repeal that legislative. He has never said that. So definitely it has nothing to do with that. But let me help you, honourable member. When you get into business, you get into business with a skill that you have, whether you're a banker or a fashion designer or whatever that you are involved in terms of the skill that you have. Then the trading aspect that you need, when to sell what you produce or that what you know requires you to be taught business skills. And this is the gap we have identified, that we had not invested a lot in the pre-investment. We have not invested a lot in the post-investment, but we jump to say people are in need of money. We give them money because they've applied for money. People need equipment, and then we give them equipment. And this is why I said one thing about investment and interventions, they require you to look at the entire ecosystem from start to end. Where are the leakages? And once you identify the leakages, then you begin to say, this is the intervention I'm going to make. If it is the policy that you need to include, then you then develop a policy like the funding model that is critical for them to access the funds. Now, they will fail if we have not enhanced post-investment, because we would have given them this money, but there's no one to mentor or babysit them, including there's no one to fight for the 3% amongst other interventions to make sure that markets are open for them, because the minute they get into the trading space, they will trade with bigger fishes who have more muscle, that are always prepared to make sure that they get out of the business. That's why you need mentors and coaches, which is the post-investment support that I spoke about, which is why now we said we are looking at the older business people that have been there, that have walked the path, to say, come and be the coaches, and we are trying to identify that. But for that to happen, we've got to know who is in the cooperatives, what are they doing, understand the politics of the business in the particular sector that they are participating in, because the interventions are not one size fits all. They are different based on the sector that you are in, whether you talk about compliance, whether you talk about monopolization of certain things or dependencies that will help the business to grow. And this is what now we're saying. We turned 11 years as the department this year. We are learning certain things, and therefore we are intervening. And we will come up with unpopular interventions at times that can upset the status quo, all because we want to make sure that those cooperatives, they don't fail. 80% of them, they remain sustainable, and they can grow our economy and be able to create so many jobs, Honorable Boshoff, so that I can get back my power. And when that power comes back, and the people will get what they want in their own country without being discriminated against when they are due to benefit in the spoils of their economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister, for your reply. Let's now go to the Honourable Sawisa, who has another supplementary question.
No, thank you, Chair. Greetings, Minister. Minister, whether there is an integrated policy or not, the reality is that women and young people still experience very little practical support from your department, we keep seeing workshops and talk shops, but not real empowerment, not real startup capital, and not real access to markets for novice women and youth trying to enter the competitive industry. Can the minister therefore give us an exact number of first-time women and youth entrepreneurs who have actually received financial or technical support from the department, and how many of them have been able to start or grow a business as a direct result of that assistance? If those numbers are still low, what immediate steps will be taken to correct this failure? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Sawisa. Your reply to that, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Chair. It would be misleading for any responsible lawmaker to believe that there's no need for integrated strategies whilst expecting interventions. That can't happen. If you know, even when you're building a party, those we see with those that have been built, if there's no clear strategy, they crash. The strategy provides guidance and direction of where you want to go, so that when you bring in resources, they are targeted resources towards what you want to achieve. So whether they exist or not, it can be from an honorable member really correct. Now, I wouldn't have any entrepreneur that would argue against workshops that empower them. Whether it's because those workshops are there to explain or take them through the interventions that government is providing. And then you hear an entrepreneur say, I don't want a workshop, but at the same time, they don't know what government is doing. I've never had. Everywhere I've gone through, honorable member, because that's one thing I do, ngiyazula. Everywhere I've been to, they all appreciate the information they get, because it is through those workshops that we begin to teach them to say, these are the things that you need in your own sector. When we conduct those workshops, they also able to share with us to say, this policy is not working. This law is prohibiting us. That is why, as part of dealing with the red tapes, because of the engagements that we've had with them through the workshops, we have then brought to government to say, these 26 pieces of legislations are prohibiting the participation of entrepreneurs. And that's the work that is being done by what you call the talk shops and the workshops. That's why here in Parliament, you get to be inducted to understand your work. It is a workshop to help you how to behave, what is expected of a member of Parliament. Those workshops can never be useless. And yes, honorable member, we are bothered by the fact that because of the budget that we have, because that's one of the things that the strategy is important for. Because when you look at the strategy, you look at the demand, and just look at the demand, you look at then what are the resources that you must have in order to deal with what you need to address. Then you agree with us, as I've been talking about the credit gap. Now, if you have a department that has about 3 billion rands, that must then feed into the challenge that I've been talking about here, 350 billion rand gap. It will tell you that definitely you are bound to leave many entrepreneurs aggrieved. That's why we have to support the 3% in order to address this concern, so that we increase the access once more to make sure that we reach a sizable number of entrepreneurs. And yes, we have supported many within the budget that we have. One thing about the budget, as we all know from our salaries, even if you wish to have a mention, if it affords you RTP, you can only focus on the RTP, because that's what it affords you. So as we have accounted in this house several times, on the budget, when we tabled the budget vote and did talk to the numbers and what is that we're going to do, this is what we are focusing on. Yes, the need is high. I want to emphasize that. And that's why I started with a 350 billion rand credit gap, so that members can understand the scope of work and the challenge that we're faced with, which does not need politicking, but to say, how do we bring all the strategies together in order to increase the access to funding for entrepreneurs? And as I said, honorable members, the good thing to do if you support the MSMEs and you want them to get more support, especially financially, is to support the transformation fund that Minister Parks is driving. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question on question 286 will be posed by the Honourable Farmer from the PA.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. Minister, you've already touched on this question, but I will continue asking you to allow you to elaborate a bit more on the answer you've given. Given the high failure rate of cooperatives nationally, how will the department ensure that the integrated strategy does not simply exist on paper, but is implemented with measurable timelines and accountability mechanisms to support women and youth? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Farmer. Back to you then, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. And yes, indeed, it is a cause for concern in terms of the turnaround times that we've been taking to respond to the support that we provide to the cooperatives of our country. And this is why the function, as it has been previously residing with our agency, that we all understand that it had to undergo the process of the measure, therefore had some disruptions. We had recalled the program back to the department to make sure that, as we had said to them, not more than 90 days on the adverts that they would have issued and the support that we have. One of the challenges that we're faced with is the little budget that we have, Honourable Member. The budget that we have for cooperatives is really not sufficient, with National Treasury also not making things easier by the budget cuts that are ongoing. But we agreed that let us engage further, because as things stand, we only have 31 million rands for cooperatives. So we want to engage National Treasury to see if we can, from TREP and the other programs, then get certain money from this for the same intended results, but at least increase the pool for the cooperatives. So we are trying to address that challenge, the turnaround times, and also ensuring that we provide more support. We continue to support them, as you know, through the CSDP program, which provides equipment to them. We continue to work with them in ensuring that there's access to market, as we all link them with the markets that they are relevant to them. But we also want to encourage members to support them, because what you would see is that most people tend to believe that cooperatives are only for unemployed people. They don't think that they are entrepreneurs. And that's one of the things, as we train the cooperatives themselves, we also have to educate the society and the young people that cooperatives is really collective entrepreneurship. So it is entrepreneurship first that you must appreciate, so that you can become a successful collaborator in the cooperative that we have. We've introduced different forms, looking at the what do you call them? The aggregator models, in order to make sure that we are able for them to participate even in the commercial space, because most of them would focus on ensuring that they're able to survive. But now, in order to disrupt, just we would look at the cooperatives, banks. We are saying people must be given an opportunity to bank amongst themselves. So we are looking at getting digital banking systems for them, because that's some of the challenges that they don't have access to, although they are banks. We continue to engage with the Prudential Authority to make sure that some of the requirements for cooperatives banks are relaxed, including the fact that you must be 200 members for you to register the cooperative bank, and this has proven not to work for many cooperatives banks. So we are looking at engaging the regulators, introducing policy perspective, as we also working with National Treasury, and also ensure that we train the people to be able to stay in successful and competitive cooperatives in order to participate in the economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. As indicated, honourable members, that concludes question 286. We now go to question 279. 279 was asked by the Honourable Montwede, the Economic Freedom Fighters delegate from the Northwest Province. It relates to the timeframes around disbursing funding. And if we can have your response, please, to question 279, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair, and thank you to Honourable Montwede for that question. Firstly, let me explain that disbursements are not uniform in approach, because we do have products and we do have programs. Now, certain products, they require lots of due diligence to be undertaken before the disbursement is done. Programs, they require that there must be verification and evidence that indeed one is in business, and the other things that are required, which will tell you that then you can have a standardized approach in terms of the timelines. But of course, if you look at what we would offer, for example, on the program side, we would be looking at 6 weeks to 30 days to 6 weeks, which will be 6 weeks is 40. Okay, you will do the calculations. And as we say that, we are appreciative of the fact that applicants at times submit applications without full documentation that is required, which leads to the back and forth to say, please submit your ID, submit this and that will take too long. But according to the plans that we have, that 6 weeks is what we are taking. We've got different programs, honourable members, as you know, the BIS, the Asset Assist, and many other interventions, which will differ. For example, you may have seen that we advertise the BIS, which is the Business Infrastructure Support Program, which now the team is busy preparing for adjudication on. Of course, we've got to take into consideration that we are going to December, which is a dead month, and then they'll have to come back in January. Asset Assist is going to be advertised for this financial year, I think, before we close now in December. And again, we have given them strict instructions, because these are the delays, because all these commitments are made for this financial year. But I had engagements with the Director General and her team seated there to say, we want clear implementation plan with timeframes. And I did say we're not having a holiday every week we receive update so that we're able to pick up on the delays or challenges that they would face and be able to make sure that we respond timeously to the entrepreneurs that are deserving of the support that we provide. One of the aspects, again, as you deal with the disbursements, is the issue of compliance, because it's not just submitting an application and then you're approved. We've got to scrutinize that we are compliant with all the legal prescripts that are there, that are defined as per the criteria that we would have set, and that all influences all the process of disbursements. So I start from advert, I go to evaluation, you go to adjudication, and then the last stage is approvals, because whilst we may have approved you, and then when we go back to say, submit this information, sign this and that, and then you're not able to do that, which is why this time we're introducing measures to say, then once the adjudication sits, if we had approved you, and then you are not bringing whatever information that we need in 30 days, then we're gonna ensure that we cancel you, even if you are approved to be a benefit, because it takes us too long that we keep on following up on one customer whilst we also have the problems that leads to the delays. Thank you so much, House Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Minister. I was going to apologize for the confusion on the screen with the time, but I see you turned it to your advantage. So let's go now to the online platform and see if Honourable Montwede has a follow-up that he'd like to ask.
Thank you very much. Eric Odumedise Modula Stilo, le botlhe ba ba leng mo ntlong mo tsatsing la gompieno. Just to start where the minister ended. Minister, delay in disbursement cuts across all your programs. You must not be defensive about that. Number two, you said sometimes you want a person to submit, you say maybe all documents are not there, but the question would be, how do you then approve somebody when all documentations are not submitted? Because if a person has not submitted anything, why would that person be approved? But it is because IDs stay for 6 or 7 months and then they expire and then they are required to come and do that submission. Minister, one of the biggest complaints from small business is that your department or SEDFA takes months and sometimes more than a year to process applications and release funds. And the delay forces many black township and rural enterprises to shut doors before help even arrives. Can the minister tell us what the reasons are? Not that reason that you said of documents not being submitted. What the reasons are for given the long-standing problems with bureaucracy and inconsistent communication, and what urgent reforms will the minister implement to ensure that funds are released on time, transparently, and without the political gatekeeping that continues to exclude deserving entrepreneurs? Ke a leboga Modula Stilo.
Thank you very much, Honourable Montwede. Minister, there were several questions there for you to choose from, but if we can have your reply, please.
Thank you so much, House Chair. I can say, of course, we also have delays, and then one says, I am in denial that there are delays. That's why I acknowledge first the delays from our side, then I added on the other things. And the reason I articulated the process is for the honourable members to understand that it's not just the application and then you get it. But of course, honourable members, it is true that we've taken too long in most of the programs to respond. That's why I made an example with Asset Assist, that I said I've put interventions in place right now to a point that I said as we go to holidays, there's no holiday. We've got to ensure that we meet weekly. It's appreciation of the challenges that are there that are faced by entrepreneurs. That's why in no uncertain terms, I made it clear to the Director General and her team that I am not going to continue accepting explanations that today is this, next month is this. People of South Africa and the entrepreneurs, they deserve the best service that they must get. So that's one thing that I'm getting involved. The DG will tell you that I would hold a House Chair mini excos once a quarter. And I've moved from that. I had said, I'm now from being monitoring in a quarter, I'm doing monthly mini excos to sit with my team, track progress all the time, because when we want to respect the quarter and all of that, then things get out of hands and then we must account. I did tell them that I am really assuming the status of being an active shareholder and active minister, which is why I directed there's no holiday for everyone that is involved in the projects that we're talking about. But secondly, one of the challenges that I've been faced with is the manual processing of documents. And this is why tomorrow, as we have the AGM for SEDFA, the agency. One of the things that I had given them as a directive when we appointed them last year was that they need to digitize SIDFA, because as you talk of the many bureaucratic processes, it's because there's 25 committees and more that an application must go through, and then the other person's on leave because people enjoy all the rights, and then this and that, then as you were saying, certificates, they then lapse and all of that. So we are digitizing, and next year we'll be coming here, you will be showcasing what you are doing, because they needed to make sure that they conduct all the relevant information before they digitize. And at the center of digitization is ensuring that they conduct the digital maturity assessment, both of the organization internally to know that if they bring systems, people will be able to use them, but also externally for the stakeholders that must use the system. So we are responding to this challenge, Honorable Member. We are aware, and indeed you are ashamed, that we are the ones that frustrate the entrepreneurs of our country by taking too long. And this is why we said there's going to be consequences on every aspect from our side, just like there should be consequences on my side if I fail to provide effective oversight that ensures that at least the little that we have for the entrepreneurs, it gets to them on time so that they're able to thrive within their respective sectors. Thank you once more.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let's go to the Honourable Sithole from the Northwest ANC.
Thank you very much, House Chair. And good afternoon, Honorable Minister. As the Honorable Minister, you may know payment in government is one of the functions that carries a very high premium of due diligence and risk mitigation to ensure that funds are paid to deserving beneficiaries in correct amount. In light of this, is there a desk or a hotline within the department to alert the deserving beneficiaries of any delays of payment for whatever reasons, and how soon will the delay be addressed? Number two, what kind of aftercare support is the department providing to the beneficiaries after the payment? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Sithole. Back to you, please, Minister, for a reply.
Thank you so much. Let me start with the last question on the aftercare support, Honourable Member. Earlier on, I spoke about the post-investment support, that we are inviting coaches and mentors. Others, they're volunteering. Others, they're still considering that they be paid, which is what we're still finalizing in terms of the model to see if that will be allowed. In the private companies, it is allowed that you can pay for mentorship, and that is the mentorship that will provide that support that we're talking about. Although we do have teams that follow up on monitoring and evaluation, but they're not able to babysit and make sure that we don't get the child at ICU, but we can pick up when the child is coughing and be able to detect that there's going to be a challenge. So that's what we're trying to do. In relation to the earlier question on, okay, may I apologize? On the hotline, yes, sorry. On the hotline, wherein entrepreneurs must provide, they can call and we provide advice. We don't have a hotline dedicated for that, but we do have a hotline that enables entrepreneurs to call us in relation to whatever, whether it's payment or any other service that they're in need of. It is a hotline that we are cost sharing with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. Honorable members will know that we still don't have a dedicated building as the portfolio. We're still residing in the TIC campus. The Department of Public Works is still taking long to then look for the property that we must occupy. I've had engagements with the minister, who has since directed his team to fast track the process so that we can be able to have our own systems that must be responsive. Most of the functions now we're still cost sharing with DTIC, but we are available because we have social media platforms and we have dedicated social media specialists now that we've put in place to make sure that they're able to respond as and when there's a need to respond, of course, depending on the program manager's responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I can speak from experience and say that when the grey hair arrives, the memory leaves. But indeed, let's go to the Honourable Bosso for the next follow-up question.
If I may, before I start, my grey hair is dyed. Minister, you've now cited quite rightly that many businesses are not compliant, their documents are not completed correctly, etc., etc. But we must again speak to the private sector where they are able to clear loans within 48 hours, and we in government still take very long. And you've also now cited that you're very ashamed of what's going on in your department. And if I understand you correctly, you say that consequent management steps will be taken against those officials who missed approved time frames directly resulting in business closures. So will you confirm today that these steps will be taken, and let's turn this department around and not be ashamed of what is currently happening in the department? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Boshoff. And then your reply to that, please, Minister.
Thank you so much. I'm going to explain two things. We are a development finance institution. We're not like commercial banks. Therefore, that will tell you even what we look for will be different from what others are looking for. The commercial banks will be able to give you a loan within a day if you provide all the information, because it is easy to automate all the systems. And this is what I spoke about, to say we are now beginning to say, let us digitize our own systems, which we can fully automate. That's why in the bank, you can get a machine servicing you. You can be able to pick up, they can use any AI agent, which is something that is not yet in government. So it's important to appreciate those. And then if you're not talking about a bank, probably talking about any of the private sector financing institutions, which makes things easier for entrepreneurs. Most of them are our intermediaries, which means they take the risk themselves. Then they go, they know what are the measures that they're going to apply for those people, which measures we can't have as government. That's why you find that members all the time, they're asking us, why do you use intermediaries? And intermediaries are used by all DFIs worldwide. It's not only us, even here in South Africa, IDC and many others, because we have to, in order to increase access to capital, there are people who stand in and say, I'm compliant, I have these systems, I have this amount, therefore you can borrow me the money, I will design my own terms to give to the third person. That's why our interventions are like that, honorable members. So it's very difficult to want to compare what the private sector will say, because if it was according to me, I mean, if I had the rights that the people in the private sector had, because as long as you are given authority, you can take a decision to say 200 million must go to the system. And I don't have to be wasting time with the tender adverts and all the other things, because they can do those. Now government operates in stipulated time frames and certain regulations that must be followed. Again, that makes things difficult, because if you go and read the Companies Act, it's going to tell you what is the role of the board, which even at administrative level, when the management is done the work, there still needs to be committees that must sit. And those committees are not full-time. There are people who are also doing work. Therefore, we've got to check availability and be able to say, this committee will meet once a month. I'm making an example, depending on all of those. And those are things that are not happening. In the banks, they don't call the shareholders for them or the board members for them to approve the funds. Delegations are given to the different operators that are there. Indeed, I spoke about the consequence management that I said. I directed the DG that we can't be explaining the same thing, because we met, we complained, and then we provided direction on what must be done, and it is not done, and there is going to be consequence management within the legal prescripts of our own country. So we are going to be looking at that. And I didn't say only on misapprovals, on everything. Because if we had come and said, this is the APP, this is what we are going to do, including looking at the non-APP targets that would have set, because even on non-APP, it is time that is paid to employees, it is resources that are being used, so people must account for all of that. So as I said, the DGs here, I met with them yesterday, which is why I said I'm never accepting explanations again, because explanations are not giving effect to the support that is required for the entrepreneurs. It is action, and only decisive action that will help us. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go back online to the Honourable Mokoena from the MKP party in KwaZulu-Natal.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable Minister, I must say it's refreshing to hear you taking ownership of the challenges that you have within your department and making sure that you are accountable for it. Minister, a 2025 report on small business financing in South Africa found that 85.6% of funding applications come from micro enterprises, yet many of those are turned down because they are deemed high risk under the outdated credit assessment models. What I would like to know is what steps has the department initiated or taken to influence newer credit assessment models are adopted and used in future so that more people can have the privilege of being successful in these applications? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokoena. Your reply, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair. The department is responsible for all the segments: informal traders, micro, small, and medium, which means when we design instruments that must support those entrepreneurs, it's going to be different instruments. So you will then make the comparisons, as I said earlier, based on the availability of the budget. We do have a program that targets mainly micro businesses, and once we run out of funds, we're not able to go beyond that. That's the first thing. The report the honourable members referred to, I know my DG attended that, and we did say we've got to look, because one thing about the research, it depends on what the researcher wanted to achieve, the angle that they take. That's why I said, even for us, when we're making interventions, we said, what are the critical things that are being raised so that when we go and conduct a research, it responds to what we want to achieve. Other people will come up with findings to suit their own agenda because they're in the particular space, it makes business sense for them. But because we are responsible for the entire ecosystem, how do we make sure that we integrate all those and make sure that we don't lose what is important, that of ensuring that we assist businesses to thrive? There are no steps taken as yet, and as I said, the Director General had attended that meeting, the launch. I know that I did say to them, you've got to look at the findings, but we must compare with our own research. Where do we collaborate and complement each other? Unfortunately, we would have loved to increase the funding to micro businesses, but reality is that we don't have. And yes, they will be declined because at times they will not meet the requirements in the other funds that are not meant for micro. That's why I spoke of the different segments. It's like a person when who says you are targeting 35-year-olds, they're applying on the youth fund, but they are 37. The youth fund will be for youth fund, for young people, and therefore the criteria will be set for them. So there is also that to say, how do we make sure that, for example, in the township and rural enterprise program that we have TREP, then we begin to say, out of this 300 million, 50 million goes to micro, but still, you're going to have lots of them that are excluded, which is why I said I continue going back to the need to increase the funding pool so that micro, small, and medium enterprises can have access to more funding and deal with the challenges that are highlighted in the report the honourable member is referring to. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. That concludes question number 279. Honourable members, bringing us on to the next question, which is question 276. It was asked by the Honourable Van den Berg from the Freedom Front Plus in the Northern Cape, and it relates to the establishment of the Cooperatives Tribunal as described in the Cooperatives Act of 2005. Your reply, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. Parliament approved the National Small Enterprise Act, which in one of the clauses defines the enterprises as being inclusive of cooperatives. In the National Small Enterprise Act, then there's a dictate that we should establish the office of the Ombuds, the Small Enterprise Ombuds, which must look into the challenges that are faced by the small enterprises, hence the Small Enterprise Ombuds. Well, the process, firstly, whilst we have from our side appointed the officials that we needed to appoint, Now Parliament is the one that is still dealing with the appointment. I'm citing this because if you look at the functions that are stipulated in the Cooperatives Act, in that were meant for the Cooperatives Tribunal, some of them are covered in the Small Enterprise Act. But of course, we said the team must then begin to tease out the areas that are not covered. How do we then make sure that we provide that support as dictated by the Cooperatives Act? I had directed the team to work with DTIC, looking at the companies tribunal, and then check all other tribunals so that there could be collaboration to say, on these areas, we collaborate as government as we're looking at ensuring that we don't just establish structures, even if the functions are redundant, because we've got to ensure that there's coordination so that if there's a crisis this side, the other side is able to deal with the crisis. So, Honorable Member, there's no appointment of any board member because we don't have the tribunal yet. And of course, it's not operational as it doesn't have the board, which is why I said I have directed our teams to look at the gaps in the existing articulation of the Cooperatives Tribunal responsibilities versus the National Small Enterprise Act and the Companies Tribunal. The teams will report and will feed back to this House next year. Thank you so much, House Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister. Let's go to the Honourable Van der Berg for his supplementary question.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a difficult one indeed, no? Because currently it seems that no findings can ever be made against a co-op because nothing is legal. Now, Minister, given the inherent nature of co-ops and also CPAs, to fail due to internal disputes and competition for control of resources, also taking in mind the slow movement from the departments towards creating this tribunal. Would a policy change towards rather encouraging personal excellence in an possible refocus on individual entrepreneurship and driving the self-motivation to succeed not be of more value in reaching the goals of economic growth in South Africa and doing away with focus on the CPAs as well as the co-ops? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Van der Berg. And back to you then, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. Earlier on, I spoke of the strategy that we have to develop the cooperatives. Whilst we recognize that at times there arise disputes amongst the cooperatives, we also acknowledge the fact that we don't have the tribunal, but we have the National Small Enterprise Act, which is why I stated the functions and did say there are certain functions, though, that can be carried out, which is what we are trying to deal with by looking at other tribunals. Now, this means that all of us seated here, especially as honourable members, we have a responsibility to engage all our parties to fast-track the process of the appointment of the Ombudsman, because failure to appoint that was long, the act was signed last year by the President, but still Parliament is delaying. So I think it is in our interest to urge all our parties to finalize the appointment of the Ombudsman so that some of the challenges that are faced by cooperatives can be dealt by the small enterprise ombuds as per the responsibilities that they have. The last thing that I would like to talk to, we're not trying to undermine the CPAs and any other work. We are not delaying in the appointment of the tribunal. I want to make it clear. We are coordinating all the instruments that are there to avoid duplication, to say which structure has some functions, because like we had said when we had to come back for the advisory body of the minister, that the advisory committee that members demanded because the act dictated so, was the act had made that dictate before the establishment of the Department of Small Business Development. So as the department grows, as the industry advances, then you begin to see that there's a need for collaboration. And when you do that, you're not saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to do it, but you must understand the need Because there's one thing we all know as members of parliament seated here, that National Treasury is no longer approving new funds for new structures. Even the ombuds that I'm talking about does not have the sufficient budget. That's the reality. Now, if I'm going to give effect to establishment of the tribunal, which some of the functions are already will already be carried out by the small enterprise, I'm creating chaos. And I can't create that chaos or make parliament to create that chaos without funding, because it's important that all mandates are followed by the structure and the funding. Now, if the funding is not there, whilst there's functionality, let's see who else we bring on board to perform the function, because indeed, correctly, Honourable Member, cooperatives should be assisted in dealing with the disputes that they have, which is why I spoke to the investment aspect, the pre and post. Because once you articulate what is expected of business people who are working as a collective, the roles and responsibilities, because you're helping them on governance matters, then you are able to, then you can take a decision as shareholders of the company, because cooperative members are shareholders of the enterprises they're operating in. Thank you so much, Honourable Member.
Thank you again, Minister. Let's now go to Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada for a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for the response. I should think some of the things you have touched, but then I'll ask, maybe you will expatiate. Has the establishment of the tribunal being costed and budgeted for? Two, to what extent is it going to be staffed from the existing internal infrastructure of the department? And three, how is capacity building and training for cooperatives going to be configured? I'm asking this, Honourable Minister, because the ombuds can handle as many disputes as possible, but without a requisite internal capacity of conflict and dispute resolution, this alone cannot be a solution. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada. Your response to that, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, Honourable Nodada. The department is busy with consultations, as I indicated, looking at the functions that the tribunal is supposed to perform. So we are exploring various models from the established tribunals to say, or to determine which could be the best model that we can use, that we must adopt for the tribunal that is so required. We're busy trying to ensure that we provide trainings, different trainings. As I said, cooperatives, they operate in different sectors, which means you are not able to provide a one-size-fits-all intervention when you're talking about the training. Even if they can be in the same sector, the sizes differ. What will be required of the small, as the cooperatives also have 3 categories, which will be your startup category or the primary, and then you go to the secondary and the tertiary. So the interventions, including the training capabilities that are required, are different, and therefore also the sector-driven, which requires a variation of interventions, which is why we have partnered with the CETAs. We are partnering also with the various departments busy signing MOUs. I have directed the DDG responsible for sector policy, who also deals with the issue of partnerships, to say this time when we sign partnerships, we've got to look at what are the weaknesses in the department, so that partners are coming to complement what we do not have or to scale what we would have started. And I'm awaiting the approval of that framework that will help us to say in the agricultural space or in the agro-processing in this particular area, this is the kind of partnership that we need. Because as I said, we've been doing everything with everyone, and we have not been able to achieve the intended results because of lack of coordination and a clear strategy that must tell us where do we want to be, by when, and therefore who do we need as the strategic partner to help us achieve what we want to achieve. And that work, we believe, Honorable Nodada, is the work that will really enhance the competitiveness and capabilities of the cooperatives of our country in the different three segments that I spoke about. Thank you once more, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go to the DA's representative from the Northern Cape. It's the Honourable Mokai.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson, and good afternoon, to the Honourable Minister and all the members here. Minister, your department has failed many cooperatives without the establishment of the cooperatives tribunal in place. And I do take what you have just explained in terms of the duplication of work and so forth. The Tribunal Act has made space for the establishment of the tribunal for cooperatives since 2012. And despite numerous commitments from your department since the act was enacted to put in place a tribunal, sadly this has not happened. And yet again, we get another commitment from your side, and undertakings are being made in this house. And there's a committee that I chair in the NCOP, the executive undertakings, and we are going to monitor closely your commitments to make sure that the duplication doesn't take place. But my question to you, Honourable Minister, will be, how do you ensure that this undertaking will be carried out and takes place, and take this house in your confidence that your department will play its role and not fail cooperatives in this country? You know, we are going to overlook that work and want to get that assurance from your house, but how do you ensure that will take place? Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Mokai. Please reply to that, Minister.
Thank you so much. Honourable Member, you can ask me a question and speak. Thank you, House Chair. Let me clarify firstly. I'm not sure when was a commitment on the establishment of the tribunal made. But since my arrival in the department, there was never a talk of the establishment of the tribunal. Let me clarify that. This is informed that even when I arrived engaging with the sector, we picked up on the duplications, and already we had started working on the National Small Enterprise Act. So if there was a commitment, I know you're saying it's from 2012, which the department was never born that time. We were founded in 2014, and there was nothing that spoke to that. Whilst we recognize that we inherited the act that dictates that we established this, but we needed to coordinate the entire ecosystem in order to deal with that. Honourable Member, I want you to, my parents named me Stella. I don't know if you know what that means. The second name is Tembisa. I don't only give promises, but I stick to them. So we are making a commitment here, as I said, that the work that is going to be done, as I said, the department is busy exploring different models. We will give account to this house, because it's important that we must come back and say, these are the findings, and therefore we will not be able to give effect to the establishment, and therefore we are proposing a repeal of the particular clause. We have to come back and give a report, because it is this house that had passed the approval of the establishment of the tribunal. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question on this set of questions goes to the Honourable Suwisa. So staying with the Northern Cape, but changing from blue to red, the EFF.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Minister Itembali Bulali Kotalia Danis, you must remember that. Minister, the purpose of establishing the cooperative tribunal was created by Parliament to protect vulnerable cooperative members from abuse of mismanagement. Yet 5 years later, it is still unclear. And it's very worrying, Minister, to say that we don't even have an idea when this ombudsman or the tribunal is going to be established, which is of a very great concern, taking into consideration everything that happens in rural areas. The main factor is that women and members of the LGBTQI community in cooperatives continue to report discrimination, exclusion, and unresolved disputes. These are matters that a properly constituted tribunal should be addressing. Can the minister explain why until today the tribunal has not been fully operational, why its membership does not reflect diversity of the sector, and what concrete steps will be taken to urgently appoint qualified women and LGBTQI legal experts to ensure fair, accessible dispute resolutions for all cooperative members? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Suisa. Some confusion, Minister. If you can have your reply to that then, please.
Thank you so much, Honourable Member Bambelele Tembe. House Chair, there is no tribunal, so I'm not even privy to discuss the membership of thereof. There can't be discrimination in something that does not exist. And of course, if there are members that discriminate against each other in their own businesses there, of course, we should really caution people to say all citizens of this country enjoy the same equal rights. And therefore, this Parliament had approved certain legislations that must be respected by all. And the rights that we enjoy come with the responsibilities, which is why it's important to know that if you want to remain a male, it is your right. If I want to be in between, it is my right. That's what we can say, to say let's all respect each other's right to exist in this land, in the choice that we make in terms of the gender that we choose. But on business, of course, we do not have, so I can't discuss that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much again, Minister. Let's move now to the last set of questions, Minister. It's question number 287. It was asked by Honourable Dlamini, the ANC's member from the Free State. It relates to women and youth in small business. If you can reply to question 287, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. And for that question on 287, that asked me about the interventions that would have provided to women and youth-owned businesses. We have a program that we called Market Access, Value Chain and Market Access. And in all those programs, we always ensure that majority of beneficiaries are women and youth so that they can be able to venture into new business opportunities. And we have the SPS, the Small Business Enterprise Development Scheme, which also exposes them to various markets, taking them outside of South Africa to the globe and the continent to make sure that they expand their net. I'm going to highlight few activities on the companies as the member asked for specifics, just examples of the work that is being done. If you see the lipstick that I'm wearing, Honourable Member, yeah, you look at me right now, né? Now I got your attention. It has been produced by one of the women-owned businesses that just a normal girl who comes from Mamelodi, who took a conscious decision to say she is going to be part of the women economy, because the beauty economy is what people are driving, and we've got to make sure that we're not only consumers of it, but we also provide support to them. I have with me many products because we are going to Christmas holidays, and the honorable members is that here. I would urge them to support these entrepreneurs. These are products that are produced by women. These are pies as you're going home. Make sure that you support them. I'm going to share the details with the Secretariat to make sure that you can. You don't know.
Sorry, yes, the president.
This is.
We can do this from now.
This is one of the products relate, which is again designed by young entrepreneurs that are beneficiaries of the work that we do. It is an overall, I know it can be confusing when you look at it because you see a bag, and of course, I'm just showcasing that our people are not only talented, creative and innovative, and you can just get this. And these are people that are supported by the department. As you go to Christmas, buying for your loved ones, of course, zizamele. As you buy nice ornaments, we must decorate in Christmas, have the Christmas mood, that support the small businesses. This is zizamele that is producing that. And there are those that, of course, they want to stay healthy. As you can see, Costa juices, you can get them. These are some of the interventions that you are making, and I would like you, honorable members, to make sure that you support these businesses. Butter. This is butter that is made by our own small businesses, woman-owned, that are saying we are making a mark. We don't want to be told stories, we don't want to tell stories, but we're going to make our own mark on the route towards economic freedom. And they are not chanting slogans, they're making it practical. Support them, honorable members. I know you are going to be eating. Do support from them. Thank you, honorable member.
Thank you, Minister. Stepping into some controversial space there with the show and tell, but yes, indeed, we continue with the questions. Let's go for a supplementary question to the Honourable Dlamini, please.
Thank you, House Chair. Good afternoon to your good self. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. I'm blessed, Honourable Chair, that my question also was complemented by a real demonstration of a physical work that is done by the department. As one of our, remarkable activists and a cadre that we produce proudly as a movement. You will agree that addressing the apartheid colonial legacy of social and economic exclusion of the vast majority of our people, especially the Africans and Black in majority, cannot be achieved over 30 years. Of course, there are challenges that your department is facing, especially with regard to addressing the issue of business owned by women, young people, and people living with disability. Can you be able to indicate those challenges and how your department are planning to overcome? But
Minister, back to you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Member, for that question. Our people continue to face unbearable conditions indeed, whether we're going to be talking about the poor infrastructure in the areas that they live in, whether we're going to be talking about the lack of control on the influx of undocumented foreigners in the areas, whether we're going to be talking about the lack of support from our own entrepreneurs, as much as we talk about the red tape, access to finance, and access to market. And I started by the three first ones that I spoke to because they can respond to the issue of the markets that we are complaining about, because we are the first market. And at all times when people want to talk about market, they want to talk about other people. And I always say entrepreneurs respond to challenges that are faced by people. And the minute they see the challenge, they then design a response, which is what they then sell in order to make sure that you are able to deal with the challenge that you are faced with. We do provide funds. We have one fund that looks at the development fund. I did say earlier that we have a development finance institution. Ourselves at the department are responsible for the development aspect of entrepreneurship. So that is why, differently to others, we have two funds, the development fund and the commercial fund. The commercial fund is meant to scale up what people have already started to do, which works well, that we can say let's expand to other industries and other areas. The development fund is the one that nurtures, taking you from ideation to prototype level, including the compliance that you must provide. So in the development fund, we do provide grant-based interventions, where we say it's non-financial. And those interventions, they also help the customer to deal with compliance, because we've seen ridiculous costs for people to be compliant. And these are the things that we are challenging. Whether you're going to start by licensing for small businesses in the local municipalities, other cities or other municipalities are putting ridiculous license fees. And these are the things that we are dealing with, utilizing the legislation, but now on this development fund, we then begin to say we are going to assist you to be compliant so that we provide training and then we pay for what we need to pay for. And when we do that, we're empowering entrepreneurs from previously disadvantaged groups. And that is not being racist. That is meant to recognize the realities of our country, as I said, leveling the playing ground for all to participate. So we deal with the barriers to entry differently depending on what are the gatekeepers in that particular sector for the targeted segment that we are responsible for. With the commercial fund, as I said, what we do is to scale what would have been done. We do provide credit guarantee, wherein entrepreneurs go to banks and they are told, go to a high risk. So we de-risk through the Kula Credit Guarantee, and we are working, I just approved 150 million rands for ABSA. I know that we are in a process for FNB, for African Bank. So many others that we are working with in order to provide access to finance for small enterprises that are not only borrowing from us because our purse is really limited. We do that to ensure that we help businesses to be able to really increase or expand their operations. We structure it on a process that must look at getting a core investment, even from the private sector, and then that must deal with infrastructure and technology in order for the entrepreneurs to be able to thrive. Thank you once more, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Minister. The DO's member from Limpopo is the Honourable Pinar with the next supplementary.
Oh, thank you, Vice Voorsitter. Minister, this entire question session, you've been talking about reducing red tape. However, me and you both know you are brewing up the business license bill. With that being said, Minister, your department is cultivating a culture of dependence where entrepreneurs look to government for handouts instead of empowerment to compete and grow within a free market economy. When can we expect you to shift your focus towards reducing red tape instead of adding to it, like your proposed unfunded business licensing bill, and rather start creating a business-friendly environment that allows the economy to flourish and small enterprises to succeed on their own merit? The current model, Minister, is not sustainable, and neither is your bill. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Pinar. Then to you for a reply, please, Minister.
Thank you so much, House Chair. I don't know if you're going to get the sitting clause. I have never brought the business licensing bill to this Parliament. I have advised Parliament that we are busy with it, correctly so, that we have to deal with. And I will respond to the concerns that the members have when I table the business licensing bill in this Parliament. Thank you, Chair. The Honourable Member sings every day I came here about red tape. Not a single day he clearly articulates what that is referring to. I said earlier, red tape is a combination of laws, of policies and regulations in the different sectors that exclude business people, especially small enterprises. But I'm aware of people who really are so scared of transformation in this country that they will try to rubbish any intent that seeks to create a conducive balance. And no one is going to deter us from the transformation agenda. The GNU itself has taken a decision to build an inclusive economy. The GNU has taken a conscious decision that we will come together if all of us respect the Constitution and not certain parts of the Constitution and abandon others that we feel like are not talking to us because we want to protect the old regime at the expense of the majority of this country. It is not going to Honourable Chairperson, please talk to your members of
Yeah, members, please, can we just not drown the speaker out? Let's respect the right for her to respond to the questions. Please continue, Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. I'm fortunate that I deal with businesses. There's no howling. I don't know people who must make policies for businesses if they can howl, if the policies can really work for them. I'm happy that I work with those people. Now, the red tape reduction framework that I spoke about, and I had articulated this, honorable members, I want to specifically request you, Chair, to afford the member an opportunity to be specific on what he's talking about so that I help respond or be able to know of the new things that he's talking about outside the pieces of legislation that we had identified, which some of them will be addressed through the business licensing bill when we bring it here. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. We now offer the opportunity to the Honourable Makasine from the EFF in the Free State.
Pathiswa Stella Thembisandabeni mandibulele ngokuzi commitment yakho ukubonakala uzimisele ukubisa abantu basetyhini nolutsha lethu eMzantsi Afrika kwezoshishino. Kodwa kunento ekhalisa abantu abathetha ngayo ukuthi how do your department reconcile these claims ukuthi persistent challenge that have faced ngaba bantu bo business abefuna ukufumana imali and nokumeka sure ababantu imali ezibazifumayo aziphuma ngexesha elilindelekileyo nibulale nale ye red tape abakhala ngayo umkani wenu lo we-GNU so that abantu bakwazi ukufumana i-opportunity okungena kwezamabhizinisi kakhulu abantu abamnyama abahleli ezilalini senza njani ukuthi nyani ndiyakuva ukuthi uyazula ekuzuleni okukwakho xa udibana nabo nenza njani ukuba icases zabo ngoba bakude nendlela zokufumana i-internet nimeke sure ukuba siyabanceda bakwazi ukufumana ibhizinisi nesupport abayidingayo. Enkosi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Makasine. Your reply, please, Minister.
Andibulele kumhlonitshwa Makasine. Nditsho into yokuba eneneni siyazama ukuqinisekisa into yokuba iinkqubo zethu nezingenelelo nezibonelelo ziza kuziswa ngokusethubeni xa sincedisana noluntu. Yiyo le nto ndithe xa ndithetha ndathi ndithetha nje sibhizi siyahlela into yokuba senza kanjani uqinisekisa uba ezinye zezixhaso esizibophelelayo ziya kubuxhaka-xhaka beteknoloji esithetha ngabo. Okwesibini, yiyo le nto sisithi sithathe imithetho epha kuma-26 ukuthi le mithetho ayincedisani noosomashishini ngoko mayivuselelwe. Siqale ngeBusinesses Act, i-AC ifumanise into yokuba iyenye ye-red tapes. Yiyo le nto ndina xa bendithetha nomhlonitshwa lo bebuza ngaphambili makakhe atsho emqolweni ukuba yeyiphi athetha ngayo. Siyancedisana noomama abashishinayo abasemaphandleni nasezilokishini. Yiyo le nto sithe senza ubuhlobo kunye neenkosi zezwe lethu. Sisayinile i-MOU ngoku bendisothula intetha yam yebudget nditshilo into yokuba sizawuba nezixhaso ezingaka ezizawuncedisana zisebenza neenkosi. Ngoku sisuka kule advert bendithetha ngayo ejongene nesupport sokuqinisekisa uba kukho izakhiwo nobuxhaka-xhaka beteknoloji obusiwa koosomashishini, iinkosi nazo zifakile ngokwendlu yazo. Esisazama ukuyenza into yokuba iprocess lena mayixokelelane ikwazi into yokuba sithi uba sitargeted zizawuba yi-25 bakwazi ukusikhethela into yoba ngawaphi lo maqomkhulu ngelo xesha because imali yethu ayikasivumeli into yoba sijongane namakhosi nabo bonke abantu kodwa siyenza ukuqinisekisa ngoba inkosi ngokurecognizwa kwi-constitution siyabandakanyeka ku-local government. So sithi njengoba sizirecognize singurhulumente kunyanzelile into nazo ke masizisebenzise zibe ngamehlo ethu neziquququ ezikhoyo ukudibanisa urhulumente ukusuka emakhayeni emaphandleni uzokutsho ngondlunkulu. Siye saqinisekisa uba enye yezinto esizenzayo sikuncedisa amashishini akhasayo ngento yokuba akwazi ukuthi nawo afumane into yokuba a-owne i-infrastructure le ye-internet uthetha ngayo ngoba ixesha elininzi oosomashishini abakhasayo bona bangomathengathengisa. Ngoku sithe sifaka imali kulesi sixhaso ndithi besi-advertisiwe se-business infrastructure nabo bathe babengelwa into yokuba bazawukwazi into yoba banikwe imali bathenge ba-owne lento siyenze into ba kuba bangasomashishini abakhasayo bazawukwazi into yokuba banikezele nge-internet e-affordable efikelelekayo koosomashishini abakhoyo. Sithe indawo zokuqala kusezilalini hayi ezidolophini apho mabafokase khona. Zonke ezinzame sizenza kuba sikholelwa into yokuba uluntu lwaseMzantsi Afrika nokuba luhleli lunolungelo olinye elichaziweyo ku-section 22 we-constitution, ilungelo lokukhetha nalo naluphi na uhlobo loshishino abangathi balikhethe okanye lokusebenza, nangona elo lungelo lingaze likwazi into yokuba libe liyaregulathwa ngokutsho kwe-constitution. Loo nto ithetha ukuthi alivulelekanga nje. Yiyo le nto umane siva abanye abangaphaya besithi uzisa lona umthetho ngoba sizama ukunika isimiselo kumgaqo siseko wethu ka-section 22. Ndiyabulela, Mhlonipheke.
Thank you very much, Minister. And the last question that will be put to you will be coming from the Honourable Peter, who's the UDM's representative from the Eastern Cape. Honourable Peter.
Manbulele sihlalo wendlu. Ndibulise kuwe Minister. Ndibonge noncumo sinika lona kule ndlu. Olubonakalisa uthando onalo kweso situlo uhleli kuso. Minister, masingayigaleli amanzi umsebenzi omhle odisplaya kule ndlu ukuba nenza ntoni kubantu bethu ukubakhulisa nabantu abatsha nomama ezilalini zethu. Masincome lona siqhobele izandla. Ubuzawuthi ke Minister umbuzo wami ngoba undiphendule ndonela. Ubuzawuthi ke ngoku awusatsho uthi ngoku Minister njengoko ke sowenze kakuhle ngohlobo ungakwazi mhlambi kwi-next term yakho xa usinika ingcaciso epheleleyo sazoba lo msebenzi ungakumhle uwenza kwiphi province so that sizazi province mhlambi esisilelayo ne-province ke mos noko zine-district at least sikwazi uyifumana in detail report ne-district sikwazi ukuyilandelelela. Siyabulela Minister. Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Peter. Honourable Minister, from my side, thank you very much. But over to you for the last response. Thank you.
Nkosi Mhlonipheki. Mnumzana uPeter, siyakwenza njalo xa sibuyela kulonyaka sayo ngoba inkqubo ezininzi ngoba sitsho besisho into yoba siye saqaphela into yoba ixesha elininzi sithi sigxile kwezi dolophu sezilungile kakuhle ezingekho semaphandleni, kwezi dolophu ebezibandakanyiwe kuthethwe ngephondo laseGauteng, kwathethwa ngesixeko salapha eKapa, kwathethwa ngeTheku as umasipalathi. Kodwa uzawuqonda uba kunakulowa maphondo kukho abantu abasemaphandleni esithi nabo mabakufuneka bazifumane ezinkxaso. Yiyo le nto sithi ngokuba sisenza sikhulisa ii-ofisi zethu kuyanyanzeleka into yokuba masibancedise ngokubatreyina aba bantu engabo abathi babancedise nge-business advice bakwazi into yokuba kuzokunyuka i-pipeline ye-deals zezo areas. Besifudula singenazo i-deal makers kuzo zonke indawo. Ngoku sivumelene into yokuba mawucascade umsebenzi uyofika phezantsi so that kuzawukwazi into yoba kuncediswa abantu ngoba abantu banombono banele nto bayaziyo but abayazi uba yintoni ekufuneka bebe nayo khona ukuze idili yabo ikwazi upasa. Le nto sithe kufuneka siyivuselele i-academy yethu, iSIFA Academy, izawukwazi into yoba ipartnerishe nabantu bonke. Sinobuhlobo nee-colleges, i-TVET colleges, sinobuhlobo nee-universities zaseMzantsi Afrika, sinobuhlobo nee-26 deans ze-commerce kuzo zonke ii-universities zalapha eziqinisekisa into yoba masincedisane from i-incubation level, sibancedisa abantu on business support, on business advice kanye nazo into ezingayo because into eyenza into yokuba imali ingafikeleli emaphandleni ufumanisa into yoba xa sisenze ezi nkqubo oosomashishini abafumanayo ngaba ba-based on urban areas yinxa yezakhono zosomashishini abasemaphandleni. Yiyo le nto siyikhuthazayo le nto yezi workshops zininzi nokubatreyina nokubambisana nabanye abantu abajongene nokuxhobisana nabo. Phambili yaphaya ndithethile ndathi sibambisene kunye nee-SETAs zisebenza kakhulu nee-wholesale and retail SETA. Ngoku sizawu-extenda to i-service SETA. Sivumelene nomphathiswa uManamela into yokuba kufuneka sisebenzisane kuba xa awunobhizinesi bexhonyiswa ngezakhono okanye beplayiselwa ezi graduates zi-unemployed employed kubo bazawuthi bakwazi ukwenza izinto ezithile ezabancedisa abantu oba zikwazi ii-deals zabo okanye izicelo zabo ziphumelele. Ndiyabulela mhlonishwa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for your presence in the House as well as the responses that you gave to the various questions. It's always wonderful having you in the NCOP. And we won't charge you for the advertising space for demonstrating those products. But it was wonderful to see the products that have come out of the enterprises that your department is favouring. Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. You may take your seat, or if you're to take leave, thank you once again for being with us. All right, thank you very much, honourable members. If you may resume your seats, we shall now move on to the next set of questions. And that is the questions that are directed to the Honourable Minister of Trade, Industry and Competitions, the Honourable Minister Park Stow. We are told is on the virtual platform and will be answering questions on the virtual platform. I would just like to check if the Honourable Minister is online now so that we may proceed with the first set of questions.
Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. It's good to have you on the platform now, and we will then proceed to the first set of questions. And the first question...
Sorry, Chair. Can you check other members have been kicked out by the system on the virtual? Can you check it? What's happening?
Yes, I'm told that there are certain members that are on the virtual platform. I have the list here. Yeah. Okay. Now, thank you very much. We shall move to the first question that was asked by the Honourable Slangisa Nodada from the Eastern Cape. And the question deals with the UF tariffs on critical exports. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions. Firstly, to appreciate the indulgence, I am joining the President in a binational commission in Mozambique. So thank you for allowing me to join virtually. Honourable members, various economists have undertaken assessments and estimate that 30% US tariffs may reduce South Africa's economic growth by 0.2% and jobs by 30,000. However, this depends on a number of factors, including South Africa's ability to find alternative markets. Analysis by the IDC has shown that in total, GDP of 123.2 billion rather, and 190,966 jobs were estimated to be associated with South Africa's exports to the USA that are subject to reciprocal tariffs. The analysis indicates, though, that the net impact would be lower than the estimated 1.8% of GDP and 1.5% of jobs. Dynamics that will reduce the estimated gross impact include that not all jobs and GDP supported by export to the US are at risk, as market access loss depends on alternative tariffs, competitiveness of particular products, availability of alternative markets, etc. Some South African producers are demonstrating capacity to diversify and have already started. Some suppliers to the US exporters will be able to divert product. The department supports companies to find alternative markets through the Export Support Desk. The desk is part of a suite of measures initiated by the department in response to the US tariff hikes, with the aim of to support the diversification of export markets for increased resilience and facilitate the entry into alternative markets for affected exporters. It provides direct tailored support to affected exporters in the following ways: guidance on alternative markets and market entry, regulatory compliance support, advisory services, and linkages to South African missions abroad for on-the-ground support. The department, though is continuing to engage the U.S. towards a trade deal and is currently engaged in negotiations with the U.S. on the agreement on reciprocal tariffs. For its part, the U.S. has now exempted primary agricultural products from the reciprocal tariffs, which brings relative relief to farmers in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now move on to the first follow-up question, and I'll call upon the Honourable Slangisa Nodada to ask this follow-up question.
Thank you and good afternoon, Honourable Deputy Chair and the Minister. Thank you so much, Honourable Minister, for the reply to this important question. But Honourable Minister, according to the official reports, the automotive, health and citrus sectors are among the critical sectors likely to be negatively impacted by these tariff hikes. My question is, what are the plans of the department to mitigate the negative impact of these tariff hikes in these critical sectors? Number two, what is South Africa's role in ensuring the unity and strategic cohesion of mutual trade relations within the SADC region and the African continent at large, including other regions of the world? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson and Honourable Slangisa Nodada. Firstly, I should indicate that, of course, we are providing support through the Export Support Desk to companies that are impacted by U.S. tariffs. And as indicated, this support includes guidance on alternative markets, regulatory compliance support, advisory services, and linkages to South African missions abroad for on-the-ground support. But we're also having specific interventions in affected sectors. So, for example, to link the two questions, we're doing extensive work in facilitating an automotive pact on the African continent for those countries that are automotive manufacturers, and therefore the ability to complement each other. In this regard, we have put a proposal through working with industry to Algeria and to Egypt at the initial phase of implementation of the Automotive Pact. We are also engaged with other sectors about opportunities in components. We've had discussions with Algeria and Saudi Arabia that have emerging automotive manufacturing capability to introduce our component suppliers into those markets. In relation to the work that we're doing with other countries, we are consolidating work of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement with regards to SACU. We are in the process of discussing the process of renewing SACU and reimagining the way in which SACU functions more as an economic bloc, beyond it merely being a customs bloc. So we are looking at various interventions in this regard. We have just signed on the margins of a G20, the Clean Trade and Investment Partnership with the European Union, which also include the automotive and other sectors that are impacted. And we're engaging other markets in ASEAN, GCC, and other markets. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Badenhorst.
Good afternoon on the virtual platform, Honourable Minister. Is the Minister prepared to acknowledge that geopolitical decisions have economic consequences and outline what specific policy adjustments will be made to protect South African jobs and export markets? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Badenhorst. Honourable Minister, your response to that question?
Well, firstly, let me say that the second part of the question I've just dealt with. So I'll deal with the one that essentially relates to geopolitical decisions. And I think the Honourable Badenhorst would appreciate that, in fact, the impacts of reciprocal tariffs from the US impact both friends and foe to the country, which is the United States. They've imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, on the European Union, the UK, South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, etc. So the positions taken around reciprocal tariffs are not as a result of geopolitical issues. So if it was the intention to suggest that, in fact, our principles around certain geopolitical issues have been the source of these tariffs, evidence is completely opposite to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We go on to the next follow-up question, and that comes from the Honourable Machabeni.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Greetings to Honourable members and Honourable Minister. Minister, these tariffs hikes threaten jobs, exports, entire value chains, and above all livelihoods. Yet there is no clarity from your department on whether you have actually met with the industries and exporters who will carry the financial burden of these UN measures. Can the minister confirm whether meaningful engagement has taken place with affected sectors? And if so, what are the concrete findings regarding job losses, production cuts, and the risk of plant closures? If these engagements have not happened, how does the department justify its silence while workers and exporters face the very real threat of declining orders and shrinking markets? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Machabeni. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much once again, Deputy Chair and Honourable Machabeni. Let me confirm that we continue to engage with affected sectors with regards to the impact of tariffs. Some of the sectors have indicated that, in fact, they would still be competitive, notwithstanding the 30% tariffs. Some of the sectors we are working with to find alternative markets, as indicated earlier. So there's different impact in different sectors on how the US tariffs would impact on them. And as indicated earlier, we continue to provide the necessary support to the affected sectors. It is a continuous process. So, for example, what we have discussed with the agricultural sector 2 months ago would have been different from the developments that happened recently. It is a continuous process. We are in the process of engaging with the years so that we can create greater clarity. I can assure the honourable member that we are very conscious of the risks and are continuously engaging to find solutions to these problems, both with the US but also with alternative markets, and where necessary, providing fiscal stimulus to those companies that are affected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The last follow-up question is from the Honourable Mokoena from the MKP. I believe she's on the virtual platform. Honourable Mokoena.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Gender mark automation in the Eastern Cape has recently said that close to 750 million in US-bound contracts may collapse as a result of everything happening. Against this backdrop, may I ask, has the department produced any sector-specific evidence-based impact assessment that incorporates these developments and global trade data? And if so, when are you publishing it or sharing it with the rest of us? Secondly, on what empirical modeling does the department base its continued confidence in the resilience of South African exports outlook, given the warnings already issued by industry leaders? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mokoena. Honourable Minister, I hope you heard the question clearly. Your response, please.
Thank you once again. And yes, we did. On the modeling, in my introduction to the reply, I indicated that we've done modeling through the IDC. We've received modeling from various industry sources and economies. Some of them would be focused in a particular sector in industry. Industry bodies in those sectors would have shared information with us. So we generally are aware of developments in the respective sectors and what interventions to make. Of course, in instances where companies are negatively affected and require support, we are providing the necessary support. In instances where we need to find alternative markets, we're working very actively to find those alternative markets. So can we publish the results of the various organizations that have published? Certainly, we should be able to publish the work that's been done by the IDC from an internal point of view. And if and when necessary, Honorable Member, we can share the work that's been done by other agencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That concludes question 280. We shall now move on to question 268 that was asked by the Honourable Boshoff. And that question deals with the triple BEE levy. Honourable Minister, your response to that.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Thank you very much once again, Deputy Chairperson, and thanks to Honourable Boshoff. The Transformation Fund aims to aggregate the funds under broad-based Black economic empowerment to accelerate inclusive economic growth. Compliance with the Act is voluntary, including the 3% of net profit after tax for enterprise supplier development under the BBBEE scorecard. The proposed approach to the Transformation Fund is not a new tax, and we've made a very clear commitment that the participation in and contribution to the Transformation Fund will be voluntary. The establishment of the Transformation Fund is necessitated by the need to fulfill constitutional imperatives of transforming the South African economic and industrial landscape, and the last report of the BEE Commission has found that there are critically low levels of spending on enterprise and supplier development and non-compliance with BBBEE, where measured entities are merely ticking the box with limited impact on the desired transformation and empowerment of the historically disadvantaged segments of our society. The details of how companies can participate and how their BEE status will be assessed will be announced once the Transformation Fund has been formally approved and is ready for implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now go on to the first follow-up question, and that will come from the Honourable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, media reports over the last week quote you acknowledging that BBBEE has been tainted by cronyism and corruption. And just last week, the Deputy President told me during an oral question session, and I quote, to bring it on when we propose laws that grow jobs and the economy. So, Minister, if BBBEE needs fixing, why are you first pushing hidden tax on struggling firms for a transformation fund that hasn't delivered a cent, instead of fixing the system before demanding more money from businesses? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Boshoff. Honourable Minister, your response to that?
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Firstly, I think that we need to assess what the problems have been in relation to the implementation of broad-based Black economic empowerment. The first and biggest problem is non-compliance. And these are companies that simply decide that, in fact, we haven't bought into the national agenda of creating equity and non-racialism in South Africa. The second is instances where there is a fronting, where companies that seek to benefit from broad-based Black economic empowerment procurement and other processes put token Black people as faces and exploit vulnerable people and put them as faces to companies that they don't actually have ownership in. And there's a whole list of non-compliance issues that we find with companies, and that is what we're talking about when we're dealing with the issue of corruption, because we're dealing with the fact that, in fact, people have submitted fraudulent BEE certificates, have undermined the system, have received contracts under false pretexts, etc., etc. And that's a very serious problem that we need to address. But we've taken a view that our approach is not going to be about fighting with the private sector. Our approach is going to be to find a way in which we cooperate and collaborate in achieving the objective of creating a society where your ability to attain your talent, capability, and ambition is not inhibited by race, class, nor gender. And that is a fundamental objective of why transformation needs to be achieved. We need to ensure that this country creates wealth and equitable access to opportunity for all people, notwithstanding the historic injustices that have been meted on these people. And the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Fund, and in particular, the Transformation Fund, says your participation in the Transformation Fund is essentially voluntary. You can decide on your own that you maintain your own ESD programs, you can maintain your own other programs, including skills development, etc. And we're more than happy with that. Would be able to tick and audit and measure that through the commission. But in instances where we can collectively work together with the private sector, aggregate our efforts and make the requisite economic impact, let us work together. So the Transformation Fund is an initiative around aggregation, around consolidation, around working together. And I can assure the Honorable Boshoff that, in fact, we're receiving more positive response to the design of the fund. Many have contributed to how we should redesign the fund to enable it to have maximum impact. And it is on the basis of these that we'll be able to announce a fund that has taken into account the views and contributions by many who do not work on the basis that this is an additional tax. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, for your elaborate response to that question. We shall now move on to the second follow-up question, and that's from the Honourable Sithole.
No, thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson, and good afternoon to the Honourable Minister. And thank you very much also, Honourable Minister, for your reply to this important question. I'm sure the Minister will agree that addressing the historical injustice of the past is a non-negotiable constitutional imperative. In this light, what are the plans of the department to engage the broad section of unlisted businesses to ensure their buy into this transformative initiative and to counter the disinformation and scaremongering by some anti-transformative forces? Number two, whether the department will consider further incentives for unlisted businesses that will comply with this patriotic and transformative project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Sithole. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Sithole. I certainly agree that it is a constitutional imperative, but it is also a moral imperative. It is a moral imperative because Black people have been historically disadvantaged through apartheid policies that put them at the bottom of the pile in terms of access to opportunity, land, economic activity. Laws were passed to ensure that Black people do not have rights to own companies and participate in the economic life of this country. It is a moral imperative for us to resolve this problem. It is the existential issue of South Africa, is the resolution of the problem of the historic injustice that has been meted against Black people, women, and people with disabilities. We are engaging with stakeholders. We have engaged in very good discussions that have helped us remodel the Transformation Fund and what it can achieve. And we continue to engage with different role players and stakeholders to ensure that this is not just a fund where people contribute, but it is a fund that achieves the socio-economic objectives we have set for ourselves. And those do include possible incentives and mechanisms through which we can facilitate that people can participate in the fund. And of course, these are not necessarily fiscal incentives, but they are incentives that would enable people to participate and gain greater value. Because some of those would be about reducing the administrative burden of compliance and other issues. And we're finding great enthusiasm in the private sector to ensure that we're able to work together to find solutions to what is essentially South Africa's key issue, which is its historic injustice and how it still represents how our society functions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Kesa from the EFF, who is on the virtual platform. Honourable Kesa, your question, please.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Minister, for covering other issues that I was going to cover. Minister, transformation is not an abstract slogan. It is about building the real productive capabilities, national self-confidence, and a new generation of Black industrialists who can manufacture innovative and expand the country's economic base. Given that reality, can the Minister explain how the 3% levy will meaningfully contribute to building productive capacity, supporting Black manufacturers, or driving genuine structural transformation when all evidence shows that BEE is in its current form has largely produced a small politically connected elite rather than broad-based industrial empowerment. In particular, what concrete mechanism in this levy directly support industrial capabilities such as machinery, skills, factories, and technological upgrading, national productive confidence, the ability of Black industrialists to compete based on output, not compliance, real Black industrialists, not paper shareholders or political connected deal makers, and a break from elite empowerment, which has been the dominant outcome of the BEE for over 2 decades. Because without this measurable and enforceable mechanism, Minister, this levy risks becoming yet another compliance burden that strengthens corporate gatekeeping and reproduces the very elite accumulation patterns that the BEE was meant to dismantle. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kesa. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much once again, and thanks to the Honourable Kesa. In fact, we agree on a lot of what the Honourable Kesa has said, because those are the objectives of the Transformation Fund. It seeks to ensure that we achieve real industrialists, we achieve real participation, that we create fiscal instruments that are able to support enterprises, that it has spatial bias in terms of rural development and township development, that we are able to ensure building industrial capability in these initiatives, and that the finances are able to support entrepreneurs in different ways, including loans, equity, blended financing, and other mechanisms. Now, I said I agree to a large extent with the bulk of the issues raised, because in terms of the objectives, we certainly agree, and that is what the fund is intended to achieve. Where we don't agree is that it's not a levy. It's not a levy in terms of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Fund. It is an instance, because a levy suggests that we're imposing a levy on industry. We're not doing that. We're saying that in terms of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Fund, and rather Act, and the historic instruments of implementation and social compact were agreed, the private sector would contribute 3% to enterprise and supplier development. And that would be about creating mechanisms through which these enterprises, qualifying small enterprises, are able to access opportunities in their enterprises, that will build their capability and support, etc., etc. All we're now doing is to say, can we use the same resources in a different way, in a manner that aggregates the funding and achieves greater impact? Because when you look at the amounts of monies that have been spent and the actual output, there isn't a correlation. in terms of what firms are saying we've spent and the actual correlation with actual industrialists. But it also is disparate deployments of resources, whereas in an aggregated way, we're able to create larger enterprises that are able to participate. The second point is the notion of a small political elite. Because you see, the problem with arguing small political elite suggests that we are not relating to the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act for what it is. The first is that it is talking about equity and ownership. Now, there are people that have participated in equity transactions. There are many that have established their own institutions and enterprises that have received support, they've gained access to opportunity, and that is part of broad-based Black economic empowerment. You can't calculate it only on the basis of those that participate in equity transaction. And even the numbers that are quoted by some in the House are actually not true. The notion that, in fact, you've only created 100 entrepreneurs is actually a fallacy if you only look at the reports we provide as a department. If you look at what we have financed as the ITC, as the National Empowerment Fund, and so on, only ourselves, we can tell you that the numbers are fundamentally different from what colleagues are saying the numbers are out there. But it is also because we don't understand that broad-based Black economic empowerment includes employment equity, ensuring senior management participation by Black people, by women. In fact, I said to colleagues, when we talk women, we're also talking white women, because they were historically disadvantaged in this country. They were not allowed to have senior positions in government, to participate in business, and so on. So this liberation also includes white women, because their participation is as a result of these policies that ensure that they are able to become active participants in the economy. It talks about skills, it talks about enterprise and supply development as indicated earlier, and it talks about social development. So you have to look at all those interventions.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, we move on to the next follow-up question, and that comes from the Honourable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Given that South Africa needs policies that stimulate small business growth and not punish it, what alternative transformation mechanisms has the department considered that would empower Black entrepreneurs without imposing an additional cost burden on the very businesses we need to grow the economy with? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Farmer. Honourable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much once again, and thanks to Honourable Farmer. In fact, to give back to your time, Honourable Deputy Chairperson, the first question that's being asked, we have responded to in the last part of my comments earlier. The reality is that we are implementing a transformation fund as a means of aggregating investments in transformation. We are relooking at the regulations and other short-term measures that ensure that we're able to maximize the impact of broad-based Black economic empowerment and transformation policies, and we will be reviewing the Act to the extent that we are relooking at its efficacy and efficiency, not because we have not achieved what has been achieved so far, but because we think that there's opportunity to enhance the transformation efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the close of question 268. We will now move on to question 283 that was asked by the Honourable Dlamini, and it relates to the alleged corruption at the National Lottery Commission, with special reference to the SIU investigations. Honourable Minister, your response, please. Honourable Minister, are you muted?
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Honourable Dlamini. The Honourable Member is advised that investigations into allegations of corruption, maladministration and related irregularities at the National Lotteries Commission are being conducted by the Special Investigating Unit in terms of the Special Investigation Units and Special Tribunals Act. According to the SIU's most recent briefing to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, significant progress has been made. Multiple disciplinary referrals have been issued against former NLC board members, executives, and employees indicating irregular conduct. Several individuals resigned before conclusion of internal disciplinary processes. However, their pension benefits have been frozen and they are cited in ongoing civil recovery proceedings before the special tribunal. The SIU has also made numerous criminal referrals to the NPA involving fraud, corruption, and money laundering by former NLC officials, their family members, and external accomplices. The NLC has received 11 employee referrals from the SIU. Of the 11 referrals, 6 officials have been dismissed and 5 have resigned. Pension preservation orders were issued for 3 of these officials, and these matters are being contested. The SIU continues to investigate additional allegations that fall within the scope of the extended proclamation. The SIU is working in collaboration with the NPA, the Asset Forfeiture Unit, and the Special Tribunal to ensure that civil, criminal, and disciplinary actions are pursued against all implicated individuals and entities. While the investigations are ongoing, the actions taken to date reflect meaningful progress in recovering misappropriated public funds, strengthening governance controls, and promoting accountability within the National Lotteries Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We go to the follow-up question from the Honourable Dlamini.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. Greetings to your good self. Greetings, Honourable Minister. Thank you for responding to my initial question. You have covered the other part of my follow-up question. The other part that I would like you to respond to is what the policy and institutional reforms do you think are critical to ensure transparency, effective oversight and accountability in governance and financial management of the National Lottery Fund. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister, your response to the question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dlamini. Also to confirm that, in fact, some of these interventions are currently underway, including a recent session that was held with stakeholders by the National Lotteries Commission, one, to inform them of the processes undertaken at the NLC, and secondly, to engage with them directly on their practical experiences and their contribution towards the solutions. The second is that we have expanded the capacity of the distribution agents to be able to adjudicate and assess processes. The third is that we have attached oversight and monitoring mechanisms, including physical visits to individual projects to confirm that, in fact, the initiated projects or funded projects are actually verified, including confirmation of the work that they do. Ultimately, what's most important is to ensure greater transparency and greater accountability, and those are the measures that the board is currently putting in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We go to the next follow-up question that comes from the Honourable Pina, the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Minister Tal. It's a shame that you're not in the House this afternoon. Minister, during a parliamentary committee meeting in June this year, you stated under questioning that you were unaware of any connection between Siseya Kaya Holdings and our very own Deputy President Paul Mashatile. Since then, what has your department uncovered regarding a potential conflict of interest between the winning bidder and the Deputy President, given the seriousness of the allegations and the need to uphold ethical governance? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pinar. Honorable Minister, your response.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pinar. I'm sure when you say it is regrettable that I'm not there, you're probably not suggesting that it is regrettable that we are at the Binational Commission, but certainly every time I'm called upon to come to the House, I will continue to avail myself, and preferably physically. In the same meeting that the honourable member is referring to, I undertook to instruct the Lotteries Board to initiate an investigation into those allegations. The Lotteries Board has continued to investigate. They've appointed forensic investigators and other investigators and attorneys to ensure that they're able to get to the bottom of this and report back. And as soon as the report has been made available, one would be able to deal with the recommendations that come there and report appropriately. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the Honourable Kennedy.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, long before the lottery corruption exploded publicly, financial institutions like the Financial Intelligence Center had already flagged suspicious transactions linked to NLC officials. With this in mind, what step did your department undertake upon receiving any of these reports or after being aware of them? And now that the SIU has exposed the scale of the fraud, can the minister confirm whether a real credible vetting process is in place for the new NLC board members to ensure this corruption never repeats itself again? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kennedy. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kennedy. I can say that the initiative of proclamation of the Special Investigations Unit was primarily to deal with the allegations that have been raised, to investigate them and to take appropriate action. As the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, working with the NLC, we have ensured that corrective action is taken against both board members and individuals that are implicated in those allegations. And I've just reported in detail what sort of actions, including criminal action, is being undertaken in this regard. So I should say that at this point, that is what I can say in relation to the actions of the department. At what point the department acted, I'm unable at this point to say immediately after which allegation were the steps taken, considering that I was not there. Is there a credible vetting process? Yes, there certainly is a credible vetting process right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now go to the last follow-up question in this segment, and that is from the Honourable Peter.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Afternoon, Honourable Minister. The SIU has exposed a sophisticated web of corruption at the National Lottery Commission, involving more than 2 billion in looted funds, hijacked NPOs and elaborate money laundering schemes. Yet, despite these damning findings, not a single major player has appeared before a court. Around the world, we see corruption cases move from arrest to sentencing within months. In South Africa, we cannot even move one docket past the start line. From your understanding, Honourable Minister, what exactly is holding up this prosecution within the NPA and the broader law enforcement chain, particularly given the seriousness of this National Lottery Commission SIU referrals? And secondly, Minister, what is the rationale behind allowing individuals implicated in these criminal schemes to merely pay back portions of the money instead of pursuing full criminal prosecution. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Peter. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much. Sorry. Just to confirm, as indicated earlier, that in fact the matters of the SIU, with those that are of an organizational nature that have been referred back to the NLC, appropriate action is underway, suspension, civil cases, and claiming of money is underway. And that claiming goes through a particular process that then arrives at claiming through civil cases, etc. And of course, these are dealt with on the basis of the merit of the individual cases, what is claimable, what the adjudication has been, what settlement you reach in instances where you reach settlement, and what were your prospects of success, or how long the case would have been dealt with. That does not mean that these are not subject to criminal investigation. So criminal investigations have been referred to the National Prosecuting Authority that is looking at prosecuting those individuals, and have indicated that they are far down the line in the process of prosecuting individuals. So our view is that matters of criminal justice are dealt with through the SIU and the court, through the NPA and the courts, and the cases are before them, and they've confirmed that they are preparing cases. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That closes the follow-up questions on question 283. We now move on to question 277 that was asked by the Honourable Montwedi, and the question deals with the agro-processing master plan with special reference to the poultry sector. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much also to Honourable Montwedi. The Poultry Master Plan is a strategic partnership between government, industry stakeholders, and labour aimed at addressing fundamental challenges in the poultry sector. Its core objectives include increasing local production, reducing reliance on imports, expanding exports, creating sustainable jobs, and enhancing food security. However, the implementation of the master plan has encountered several significant challenges. The first relates to import competition. In this regard, the influx of cheap imports, often involving dumping practices, continues to undermine local producers. Rising input costs, in this regard, increasing prices for key inputs such as feed, electricity, and fuel significantly squeeze profit margins for producers. And that there's limited access to finance, in particular for emerging and small-scale farmers, and inadequate infrastructure. It is also issues related to biosecurity and issues that are related to export barriers and conditions placed by importing countries. The Poultry Master Plan has made significant progress in addressing these challenges within the industry. Major achievements in this regard include reducing import competition. The implementation of anti-dumping duties and tariffs resulted in a 22% decline in chicken imports between 2019 and 2024. On upgrading industry infrastructure, over 2 billion rand was invested in expanding and modernizing industry infrastructure, including processing facilities, cold chain logistics, hatcheries, and abattoirs. And with regards to improving access to finance, to support the growth and transformation, more than 1.2 billion rand was allocated to poultry-related projects through financial institutions such as the IDC and the Department of Agriculture and the Land Bank. And then it's about enhancing biosecurity to safeguard the industry against disease outbreaks. Biosecurity protocols were strengthened. And then expanding export opportunities. Poultry exports increased approximately 17% between 2019 and 2024. These coordinated efforts reflect a strong public-private partnership focused on building a more resilient, competitive, and inclusive poultry industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We now go on to the first follow-up question that will come from the Honourable Montwedi, and he's on the virtual platform. Honourable Montwedi.
Thank you very much, Chair of the session. Minister, we are aware that major players that have signed up to that poultry sector agro-processing master plan rather are now are frustrating your program to a point where they have stopped issuing letters of intent to new or emerging growers. And this directly undermines the transformation goal of the agro-processing master plan, because without those letters, small black growers cannot access finance and cannot enter the supply chain and cannot scale production. Can the minister please explain the reason behind this sudden withdrawal by some of these players in the industry, and what concrete steps is the department taking to prevent established players from blocking new entrants and choking transformation in the poultry sector, thus reinforcing the dominance of a few large cooperations while sidelining emerging black producers? And maybe just a quick one there, Minister. You did speak about the anti-dumping policy. What is the department's current position with regards to the dumping that we are receiving, especially from the US? If the minister can take us into confidence with regard to that, because I think that will go a long way in supporting our local poultry sector. Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Montwedi. Honourable Minister, your response to that question.
Thank you very much, Honourable Montwedi. Can I take the issue of the letters of intent as an allegation that I will refer to my colleague, the Minister of Agriculture, because the master plan, this master plan in particular, is run through the line function of agriculture, of course, with our coordination, but to the extent that I myself have had to deal with letters of intent and the allegations raised by the Honourable Montwedi, I have not. But it's something that I'll follow up on. With regards to the engagements with the US, I did indicate to the House earlier that we are in engagements with the US around, quote unquote, the agreement on reciprocal tariffs, and that would include comprehensively all issues, including agriculture issues that would be part of the discussions. So we should be able to indicate on the basis of those discussions what the outcome would be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We'll move on to the second follow-up question, and that's from the Honourable Modise.
Thank you so much, Chair and Minister Mpho Pax Franklin Tau. You have responded to what I wanted to check with regards to the impact that the US and South Africa in terms of the chicken imports has had on the sector. And I want to believe, Minister, that one of the most important things that I think you are receiving a lot of pushback is around the transformation of the sector, especially where you need to include the women, youth, and people living with disability. And the agro-processing master plan, Minister, you already spoke to it. But I just want to assure you that we will continue to support you and the department in your endeavor to ensure that the transformation finds expression. And I'm sure all the progressives in this House will definitely support you in ensuring that there is indeed transformation within the poultry sector, so that it's not only a sector that is concentrated in a particular individual or a particular grouping. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Modise. I didn't hear a question there, but Honourable Minister, if you want to respond, you may.
And certainly to welcome the comments, I fully agree with Honourable Modise on the need to accelerate transformation and to ensure that all South Africans have opportunities in participating in this and other sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The next follow-up question is from the DA, the Honourable Boshoff.
Thank you very much once again, Deputy Chair. Minister, after almost 6 years of the Poultry Master Plan with far too few measurable outcomes, will you today undertake to enforce real consequences for non-compliance, or concede that the plan in its current form requires a fundamental overhaul? And then what enforcement actions will be taken against master plan stakeholders failing to meet their commitments in the poultry sector? Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Boshoff. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Honorable Boshoff. We are currently in a process of reviewing the master plans and their implementation. These are social compacts and they are not necessarily a regulatory mechanism that says this is what industry should do. It is a partnership between industry, civil society, labor, and government to drive implementation jointly. So it is not punitive from that sense, but we do think that working with industry, we need to find ways of ensuring that the master plans are implemented. And these are performing at different levels. Some of them are doing very well, while some of them are lagging. And it's something that is part of our review process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We go on to the last follow-up question to this one, and that is a question from the Freedom Front Plus, Honourable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you have spoken to this, but I think just for clarity, let's repeat this one. So, Minister, unfair imports and dumping practices from Brazil, the EU, and the US undermine local producers. So, what does your department do to curb this? And given the current impasse between South Africa and the US, should this current scenario not be beneficial to the local poultry producers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable van den Berg. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Firstly, to start with a generic point that we do impose anti-dumping measures in instances where particular industries are impacted by this. And many of these are initiated by industry that request us to investigate through ITAC what anti-dumping is taking place and what measures could be implemented. With regards to the engagements with countries, we have engaged with countries where we are having dumping of particular parts of chicken and poultry, broadly speaking. And these are part of the negotiations that we're currently having with them. But that does not stop us from taking action against the individual companies that are responsible for anti-dumping, including introducing the anti-dumping measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of question 277. We now move on to question 274 that was asked by the Honourable Mokoena from the MKP, and that deals with the transformation of the economy. Honourable Minister, your response to that question, please.
Thank you very much to Honourable Mokoena. We note the concerns raised regarding industrial sector stagnation, which is a function of global trade tensions and other geopolitical and macroeconomic factors. The department is also not aware of wasted public funds in this portfolio, as evidenced by successive HESA audit outcomes, and all our projects are meticulously planned and executed based on best practice project management approaches and in full compliance with relevant legislation. The department has no record of mismanagement being justified, and where any such conduct may have been witnessed, it has been dealt with within the prescripts of the law. The department, in collaboration with sister departments and based on government-wide approaches to the challenge, has facilitated multiple interventions to transform the economy. And these include, but are not limited to, the resolution of electricity supply issues and enabling negotiated price agreements for strategic sectors of the economy, resolving the transport and logistics challenges as witnessed by improved port efficiencies and rail availability and the recently announced PPP-based approach to service delivery, the Black Industrialist Scheme, and other similar incentives that have been verified to have had the desired impact. Various safeguard and anti-dumping measures have been effected to promote our industries. This is over and above the constitutionally mandated empowerment of transformation imperatives, which continues to be based on the BBBE legislation, as well as the designation and localization policy frameworks. All these measures are meant to contribute to job creation and retention, increased industrial output, inclusive growth through support for SMMEs, black industrialists, etc., reduced import dependency through localization and supplier development, and resilient value chains that are better able to withstand global shocks. The department remains committed to collaboration with industry stakeholders in order to create sustainable employment and inclusive economic growth through the revival and growth of key productive sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The first follow-up question will come from the Honourable Mokoena, who's on the virtual platform. Honourable Mokoena.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, your department continues to speak about revitalization, yet every credible indicator points in the opposite direction. Manufacturing capacity is still stuck below 80%, and companies that have received incentives have either collapsed or delivered only a fraction of what has been promised. At what point would you acknowledge that the current approach is simply not working, and finally accept that a strategy that has failed for 3 decades is by definition a failed strategy altogether? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokoena. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you, Honourable Mokoena. I think to suggest that, in fact, policy has fundamentally failed and that we need to admit would be a misrepresentation of current reality. Of course, we have had a reduction in industrial capacity in the country and deindustrialization in particular sectors, and we're intervening to respond to those. But to the extent that, in fact, all the programs need a fundamental rethink, I think would be a misrepresentation of the reality. I did indicate earlier the steps that we're taking to improve industrial policy, to enhance the instruments at our disposal, and to facilitate better implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now move on to the next follow-up question, and that's from the Honourable Sithole.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chairperson. Honourable Minister, allow me to first applaud the law enforcement agencies for serious strides made in bringing those responsible for state capture to book. As the Honourable Minister may be aware, according to 2024 World Bank report, South Africa's economy is rated as among the most resilient in the world, with a steady growth despite the shock of COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, what are the key sectors of the South African industry that has witnessed stability, resilience, growth, and global competitiveness? And what are the key challenges facing these sectors? And how is the department addressing those challenges? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Sithole. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, Honourable Sithole. Firstly, I think that a lot of the resilience of the South African economy is also the function of public policy and interventions by government. Public policy, including a solid banking regulatory system, a solid banking system, interventions by government that were introduced, amongst others, during COVID to mitigate the impact of COVID in different industries. So some of these realities that are observed by external stakeholders are essentially reflective of the strength of our economic institutions and instruments. There are specific sectors that we can continue to highlight. Of course, we've been having a lot of discussions around the agricultural sector that has remained very strong. Our mineral sector has remained strong. And notwithstanding, in certain instances, global shocks, we have survived the impact of global shocks on our minerals and mining sector. We certainly have a strong automotive sector supported by the Automotive Production Development Program and related incentives in this regard. We continue to look at the capacity in automotive components and industrialization. Furniture manufacturing has continued to strive. And the list is fairly long, but many of these have different levels and instruments of support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. We now move on to the next follow-up question, and that comes from the Honourable Pina of the DA.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Minister, you cannot blame COVID forever. Minister, South Africa's industrial sector is on life support, held back by government red tape, energy instability, rigid BBBE requirements, and reckless political rhetoric that undermines investor confidence. And those are the facts, Minister. What concrete engagements have you had with other key departments to reassure local and international investors that South Africa is in fact a secure and reliable destination for their capital? Thank you, Minister. Deputy Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pina. Honourable Minister, your response to that question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pina. Certainly nobody was blaming COVID forever. I was responding to a question related that had COVID in it. Therefore, my comments were responsive to that. Firstly, let me talk about an initiative that we are driving to ensure that we're able to address red tape and to work with sister departments to ensure that we're able to red tape. We're initiating and intend to present to the House a general laws amendment bill or omnibus bill that would look at all those acts and regulations that create the red tape with the intention that we resolve the red tape. With regards to BEE regulations, I indicated earlier that in terms of the Transformation Fund and contributions that have been made to the policy and implementation, we're really looking at certain elements that could reduce the regulatory burden and improve the efficacy of transformation funding. And that's part of the design of the fund with contributions coming from the private sector. We're working very closely with our sister departments. You would know, Honorable Pina, that significant progress has been made with regards to energy security, but also enhancing access to energy for industries that have been impacted by not only access, but also cost of electricity. And specific measures have been taken to mitigate that in particular sectors, and ongoing discussions are underway, in particular in chrome and steel, to see what interventions can be made in this regard. We're working with the transport sector with regards to the efficiency of ports and transport networks so that we are able to enhance the efficiency of our economy. And indeed, the successes that we're seeing in the past year, in fact, in the past 2 years, I should say, because it's a culmination of a result of a lot of work that's been done through the Operation Vulindlela, we're seeing significant improvements in energy, in transport and logistics. So yes, we're working with sister departments in the resolution of these issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Now the last final follow-up question is from the Honourable Makasini.
Thanks, Deputy Chair. We have on the app. The ECON is Minister, with the reference of the ongoing stagnation of industrial sector and the persistent pattern of the public funds being poured into the project that collapse due to the poor planning and inadequate risk assessment, on what basis does the department justify the level of waste, and why should the public accept such catastrophic mismanagement as anything other than failure of the leadership and oversight? Beyond the historic and ceremonial launch, what specific cost and enforcement mechanism has the department put in place to rebuild industrial capacity, protect workers and secure local manufacturers, and to ensure that those who are responsible for failed projects do not continue to benefit while the community sink deeper to the poverty? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Makasini. Honourable Minister, your response to that question, please.
Thank you very much, Honourable Makasini. The first part of the statements are allegations, and to the extent that the Honourable Member would want to make those allegations available to us, we would accept it. But to make sweeping statements that expect us to simply confirm those unfounded allegations and unsubstantiated allegations would be quite inappropriate. Substantiate them and we will look at them. In relation to rebuilding industrial capacity, we have indicated that we're in the process of finalizing the revised industrial policy, finalizing mechanisms of the way in which our master plans are functioning, and linking that to the financing instruments and mechanisms, including how the DFIs are able to invest in the economy. But most important, to work with the private sector in finding solutions. We're spending a lot of time with our colleagues in the private sector, jointly identifying areas of opportunity, areas of investment, innovative ways of addressing what are the private sector challenges that could be enhanced through public policy instruments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That brings us to the end of question 274. We now move on to the last question for the day, and that is from the Honourable Mabilo. Question 281 that deals with the Black Industrialist Program. Honourable Minister, your response to that question, please.
Thank you once again, and thanks, Honourable Mabilo. The Black Industrialist Program has produced several successful beneficiaries since its inception in 2016-17. Below are just some of the few examples. The Bakoni Gas, a 50% women-owned Black industrialist in the city of Johannesburg in Gauteng, established a fully operational facility to produce medical-grade oxygen and high-purity nitrogen. Currently produces 10 tons of oxygen per day and supplies gas to the group of Netcare hospitals as well as clients in the mining sector. Dunlop Belting, a Black industrialist located in Ekurhuleni, received funding to expand its facility to manufacture a variety of conveyor belts which are supplied to the mining, construction, energy and agricultural industries, and is also used at power stations and ports. The Little Masters Diapers, trading as LM Diapers Manufacturers, is a Black industrialist originally funded in 2018 to expand its plant in Sidibeng and again in 2022 to expand to a new facility at the Dube Trade Port in eThekwini, KwaZulu-Natal. Dalisu Holdings is also a Black industrialist located in Gersibanda in Mpumalanga for new state-of-the-art chemical plant and manufactures 99.5% purified sodium sulfate from a byproduct previously considered waste. The Noodle Factory is a Black industrialist located in Philippine, Cape Town. It received Black industrialist funding to expand the manufacturing facility. The company trains unskilled employees, upskilling many whilst helping them open bank accounts. Topline is a Black industrialist based in Mangaung in the Free State, funded to expand its plastic production, bags, sheeting and tubing. Sinogas is a Black industrialist based in the Amajuba district in KwaZulu-Natal. The company is being funded to establish a state-of-the-art food-grade carbon dioxide manufacturing plant. So the Transformation Fund complements the Black Industrialist Program by expanding and deepening the ecosystem of support for Black-owned enterprises across sectors. And I wanted to make a last point, which is that those that say that, in fact, broad-based Black economic empowerment doesn't work, it's funded a select few, the companies, the examples I've made from the many other examples we can make, demonstrate that, in fact, from those people you are counting as beneficiaries of BEE, you certainly would not have counted this, because this is just demonstration of the reach of the Black Economic Empowerment Program to various parts of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now go on to the follow-up questions, and the first follow-up question is from the Honourable Mabilo.
No, thank you very much, Minister, for the comprehensive response to our question. I must hasten to say, Minister, that you are very much consistent serving in that committee. Whenever we require you, you are always there. Honourable Minister, without going into details, my questions will be as follows. One, how evenly has the Black Industrialist Program been rolled out in various provinces as part of addressing the apartheid colonial legacy of skewed inequalities, concentration of resources? 2, what are the future plans to ensure its footprints in the rural provinces? Lastly, Chair, I agree with Honorable Mdise that you have our support and we appreciate the hard work that you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mabilo. Honorable Minister, your response to that question, please.
Thank you. And maybe just to start by saying, Honorable Mabilo, thank you very much. We share the observation that the reach has not been to all provinces in an equitable way, and that we need to improve access to the facilities in the rural provinces that have an underutilization rate of access to the Black Industrialist Fund. And part of our response, amongst others, has been to ensure that there is spatial targeting in the deployment of resources so that it's not always just dependent on application, but that we have targeted spatial interventions through industrial parks, special economic zones, and other initiatives that would ensure equitable access throughout the provinces. And I can reassure the Honourable Member that it is a matter that we are prioritizing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. We now move on to the follow-up question number 2. That's from the Honourable Mokai.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. My follow-up question is as follows. If the Black Industrialist Programme is truly achieving its objectives after nearly a decade of implementation, billions of rand disbursed, and 10,000 of jobs reported, how does the Minister explain the lack of any visible shift in concentrated industrial ownership or competitiveness in key manufacturing sectors, particularly in terms of the broad-based Black empowerment participation and genuine Black control of this firm? Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokai. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Mokai. Firstly, I'd like to assume that the question is not based on an assumption that, in fact, the Black Industrialist Programme has not had, or rather scheme, has not had impact. And I've made a few examples, as from the initial question by the Honorable Mabilo, to indicate the extent of impact in the various sectors and various enterprises that are participating. I agree that we have identified the need to enhance these investments. And that's why, amongst others, we think that the Transformation Fund would enhance this. It would enable us to invest more greatly into more enterprises and make more meaningful impact. Because truth is, the private sector has been reporting a lot of investments into the enterprise and supplier development programs, into equity equivalent programs and their impact. But the reality is that the impact is not reflective of the investment made. And we are working on ensuring that we're able to maximize the impact through the interventions that we're putting in place, but not discounting and downplaying the successes of the projects already implemented. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We now move on to the next follow-up question, and that's from the Honourable Kennedy.
Thank you again, Honourable Deputy Chair. Minister, the Black Industrialist Programme aims to grow sustainable Black-owned businesses. Yet, we often see the same few individuals or companies accessing multiple funding streams. Can the Minister tell this House what specific measures are in place to prevent the double dipping and ensure opportunities are broadly accessible to new entrants? And how will the new Transformation Fund, through its grants, debt, and equity instruments, practically complement the existing BIP cost-sharing grant model so that it strengthens real industrial transformation rather than just recycling the same beneficiaries? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kennedy. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you once again, Honorable Kennedy. I will once again refute the allegation that in fact the benefits have accrued to only a few. And I indicated in my reply, just on the examples given, that those companies are not necessarily owned by those that are alleged to be the few. And we can continue giving you the list of beneficiaries in the IDC. We've been asked questions in the National Assembly. We've given a full list of beneficiaries in the IDC, beneficiaries in the NEF, etc., that are able to demonstrate the initiatives of Black economic empowerment, but also participants in not just procurement in the state, also in the private sector, because when you're talking about enterprise and supplier development, you are actually, through the private sector, empowering Black entrepreneurs. And we choose to ignore them as if they're not part of the country's policy instruments and beneficiaries of the policy initiatives of this government. So, excuse me, I'll continue to refute that allegation. However, we agree on the need to enhance the investments made and the, if you like, the return on investment made on transformation. And that's the transformation fund. The transformation fund would have a debt component, it would have an equity component, it would have a grant component, it would have blended financing. It would also be spatially biased. We're also considering investments in specific industries, including a particular focus on export-oriented industries, so that Black industrialists are able to export, to participate in the very many negotiations that we're having with potential trading partners, and they're able to access those opportunities. So we will continue to ensure that we enhance these programs and their efficacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The last follow-up question is from the Honourable van den Berg.
Thank you. Yes, Minister, it's the last one for the day. So my question speaks to productivity of empowerment funds, also commonly referred to as bang for buck. The country should find a return on investment from every rand spent, and especially so for the Black industrialist programs. If this program is doing so well, why are we not finding a lower unemployment rate? Are we really gaining more than what we are spending to try and get these results? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable van den Berg. Honourable Minister, your response, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure Honourable van den Berg would be surprised that I agree fully with his first statement. We need to get more bang for buck. We need to get better returns from the investments, both public and private investments, into transformation. And that would include, in fact, impact on jobs, impact on industrialists, on skills, on capability, on management capacity, etc. And part of the reason we've introduced the Transformation Fund is to do exactly that. The reasons for unemployment in our country are varied. They are not only dependent on transformation initiatives. Indeed, we can demonstrate the extent to which transformed companies have increased jobs in specific sectors, but I don't think that transformation on its own is the single answer to unemployment in our country. It's a multiplicity of interventions that we're working on to address unemployment, and we need to look at this within the context of the industrial policy that will be publishing soon. Thank you very much. And thanks once again, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable delegates, I would like to thank the Honourable Minister, the Honourable MECs, all permanent delegates and special delegates for availing themselves for the sitting. Honourable Minister, we appreciate your being on the virtual platform since you couldn't be in the House physically. And thank you for your responses to the questions. Honourable delegates, I would like to remind you that on Thursday, we have the Deputy President in the House, and there has been a 3-line whip called in this regard. So I would like to urge all honourable members to make themselves available to be in the House physically so that we can listen to the Deputy President's address. Having said that, honourable delegates, that concludes the business of the day. The House is now adjourned.
Long live the chair. Recording stopped.